She crossed a continent for a promise written in ink. When she arrived, that promise died in the mud along with her dignity. Rejected, humiliated, abandoned in a town that didn't want her, Eliza Hart had nothing. Then a stranger offered her something no one else would. A chance. What happened next wasn't about romance or rescue. It was about a woman who learned that sometimes the hardest choices build the strongest foundations. Stay until the end of this story. Like and comment with your city so I can see how far this journey has traveled. The train lurched to a stop with a screech of metal that set Eliza's teeth on edge. Through the smudged window, she could see the platform, a stretch of weathered wood slick with rain. A few men in coats hunched against the downpour, their faces hidden beneath hat brims. Beyond that, the town itself, squat buildings the color of old bones. Streets turned to rivers of mud, and somewhere in the gray distance, the vast nothing of the frontier. She pressed her hand against the glass. The cold seeped through her glove. This was it. Salvation, Montana. Population. She didn't know. The letter hadn't said. Victor Hale's letter had said other things, though. Things about land and prosperity, about a future worth claiming, about a man who wanted a wife and was willing to pay her passage to prove it. Eliza had read that letter so many times the creases had gone soft. She'd memorized every loop of his handwriting, every promise embedded in the careful script. A good life awaits you here. A home, security, respect. Respect. She almost laughed at that now, sitting alone in the passenger car while the other travelers shuffled past her, their faces tight with the exhaustion of 3 days on hard benches. Respect wasn't something Eliza had known much of back in Philadelphia. Not as a seamstress in a boarding house that smelled like boiled cabbage and unwashed men. Not as the daughter of a man who drank himself to death and left her with nothing but debts and a name people whispered about in the hallways. The train had been an escape. Victor Hale's proposal had been a lifeline. And now, stepping onto that rain-soaked platform with her single battered trunk dragging behind her, Eliza felt the full weight of what she'd done. She'd bet everything on a stranger's word. The conductor helped her down, his grip perfunctory, already moving on to the next passenger. The platform trembled beneath her feet, or maybe that was just her legs, unsteady after days of sitting. Rain hammered down, soaking through her coat in seconds, plastering her hair to her face. She looked around wildly, searching. There were men everywhere. Men loading cargo, men smoking under the eaves of the station house, men shouting orders she couldn't quite hear over the roar of the storm. But none of them looked at her. None of them stepped forward. Her heart kicked hard against her ribs. She pulled the letter from her pocket, shielding it from the rain with her body as she unfolded it. "I'll meet you at the station. You'll know me. I'll be the one waiting." She scanned the crowd again. Nothing. A hand touched her shoulder and she spun, hope flaring bright and sharp. "You need help with that trunk, miss." Just a porter, young, gap-toothed, already looking past her to the next piece of luggage. "No," she said. I'm waiting for someone." He shrugged and moved on. The platform emptied. The train hissed and groaned, preparing to leave. Eliza stood there, clutching the letter, feeling the rain work its way down her collar, down her spine. Cold. She was so cold. Then she saw him. He came striding up from the far end of the platform, his boots splashing through puddles, his coat open despite the rain. Tall. Broad-shouldered. Handsome in a way that photographs could never quite capture. Sharp jaw, dark hair, eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. He moved like a man who owned the ground he walked on. Victor Hale. It had to be. Relief crashed over her so hard she nearly stumbled. She raised a hand, started to call out. He stopped 6 feet away. His gaze raked over her, head to toe, slow, clinical, the way you'd assess a horse at auction. Eliza's hand fell. "Eliza Hart?" His voice was smooth, cultured, the kind of voice that belonged in parlors, not on muddy platforms in the middle of nowhere. "Yes." She tried to smile. "Mr. Hale, You're smaller than I expected." The words landed like a slap. Eliza blinked, the smile dying on her lips. What?" "And older." He tilted his head, studying her with something that might have been amusement or might have been disgust. She couldn't tell. "The photograph you sent. How old was it?" Heat rushed to her face. 2 years, maybe 3. I didn't think—" "No?" He stepped closer. close enough that she could smell cologne and whiskey. You didn't think. That's clear. There were other men gathering now. She could feel them at the edges of her vision, drawn by the spectacle. A woman alone. A man looking at her like she was something he'd scraped off his boot. Mr. Hale. She fought to keep her voice steady. I don't understand. The letter, you said, I know what I said. He pulled a folded paper from his coat. Her letter, the one she'd sent in response to his advertisement. He held it up like evidence. You said you were 22. You said you were in good health. You said... He paused, and now there was definitely amusement in his eyes. The cruel kind. You said you were pleasing to look at. Someone laughed. One of the men watching. A short, ugly sound. Eliza's throat closed. I'm 25, she said. I never lied about. You look 30. I've been traveling for 3 days, and you're too thin. Victor circled her, still holding that damned letter. A man needs a wife who can bear children, Miss Hart, who can work. You look like a strong wind could knock you over. She wanted to run. Every instinct screamed at her to turn and bolt, to get back on that train, to disappear into the rain, but her trunk was here. Her money, what little she had left, was in that trunk, and the train was already moving, already pulling away with a shriek of steam and iron. Please. The word came out small, broken. She hated the sound of it. I came all this way. You wrote to me. You asked me to... I asked for a wife? Victor stopped in front of her, close enough that she had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. Not a charity case. The platform had gone quiet. Even the rain seemed to pause, waiting. I made a mistake, Victor said. His voice carried. He wanted everyone to hear. An expensive one, apparently, but not one I'm obligated to compound. What are you saying? But she knew. She already knew. I'm saying the arrangement is terminated. I'm saying you should have stayed in Philadelphia. He folded her letter and tucked it back in his coat. Then he tipped his hat. Actually tipped his hat like this was a social call he was concluding. Safe travels, Miss Hart. He turned and walked away, just like that. Eliza stood frozen, the rain pounding down, her trunk sitting in a puddle beside her. Her entire future walking away across a muddy platform. The men were dispersing now, the show over, back to their cargo and their cigarettes. A few of them glanced at her as they passed, pity in some faces, entertainment in others. She couldn't move, couldn't breathe. 3 days on a train, every cent she had spent on the ticket. The boarding house sold her few possessions to cover her back rent. The landlady's face when Eliza said she was leaving, the barely concealed relief. Good riddance to bad rubbish. She'd burned every bridge. And for what? For this. The platform was empty now except for her. Even the porter had disappeared inside the station house. Through the window she could see him warming his hands by a stove, laughing with someone she couldn't see. Eliza looked down at her trunk. At her hands, white-knuckled on the handle. At the mud creeping over the toes of her boots. She'd thought she'd hit bottom in Philadelphia. Thought she'd known what it meant to have nothing. She'd been wrong. The station house door opened. A man emerged. The station master, probably, with his green visor and ink-stained fingers. He saw her and sighed. You can't stay out here, miss. I know. Her voice sounded far away. I'm going. Going where? Good question. She picked up her trunk. It felt heavier than before, like it had absorbed the rain, the failure, the weight of her own stupidity. She started walking. Not toward town. She couldn't face that yet. Couldn't face the people who'd watched her humiliation. She walked the other direction, toward the edge of the platform where it dropped off into the mud and scrub grass. Miss? The station master again, his voice uncertain now. There's nothing that way. Just the road to the ranches. She kept walking. Behind her, she heard him mutter something. Then the door closed and she was alone. The rain was letting up, not stopping, just shifting to a sullen drizzle that hung in the air like fog. Eliza reached the end of the platform and stood there, looking out at the vastness. Rolling hills the color of old bruises. Fence posts marching into the distance. Somewhere out there, Victor Hale's ranch, his life, the future he dangled in front of her and then snatched away. She should feel angry. That's what women were supposed to feel, wasn't it? Righteous fury at the injustice of it all. but she just felt tired and wet and so stupid. You planning to stand there all day? The voice came from behind her, rough and low. Eliza turned. A man stood at the edge of the platform. She hadn't heard him approach. He was tall, not as tall as Victor, but solid in a way Victor wasn't. Broader through the shoulders, older, maybe 40, with a face that looked like it had been carved from the same hard wood as the fence posts. Weather-beaten, unshaven. His coat was patched at the elbows and his hat had seen better days. He wasn't looking at her. He was looking at the road, like he was waiting for something. "I'm sorry," Eliza said automatically. "For what?" "I'm in your way." "You're not in my way." He glanced at her then, quick and assessing. Not like Victor's inspection, more like he was checking if she was broken. "But you're going to catch your death standing out here." "I don't have anywhere else to be." That got his attention. He turned to face her fully, and she saw his eyes were gray, storm-colored. "You're the one Hale was supposed to meet." Not a question. She nodded anyway. Saw him leave. The man's jaw worked like he was chewing on words he didn't want to say. "Saw the whole thing, if I'm honest." Heat flooded her face again. "Then you know I'm not... I can't. I know you're stuck." He said it matter-of-factly. "And I know it's going to be dark soon, and cold." Eliza looked at the sky. He was right. The gray was deepening, turning the color of iron. She had maybe an hour before nightfall. "There's a boarding house in town," the man continued. "Mrs. Fletcher runs it. She's not kind, but she's clean. You have money?" "A little. Enough for a week?" Eliza did the math in her head, her remaining funds measured against the unknown price of a room. "Maybe, if she's cheap." "She's not." "Then no." The man was quiet for a moment. Then he picked up her trunk like it weighed nothing and started walking toward a wagon she hadn't noticed before, half hidden in the shadow of the station house. "Wait." Eliza hurried after him. "What are you doing?" "Taking you somewhere you won't freeze." "I can't. I don't know you." He loaded the trunk into the wagon bed and turned to face her. "Cole Mercer. I run a ranch about 8 miles north of here. It's not much, but it's got a roof and a stove. You can stay there tonight. Tomorrow, you can figure out what comes next." "Why would you help me?" "Because Hale's a bastard, and someone should." The bluntness of it shocked a laugh out of her. Short and bitter, but still a laugh. Cole Mercer's expression didn't change. "I don't need charity," Eliza said. "Good, because I'm not offering it." He climbed into the wagon seat. "I need someone to cook and clean. My last housekeeper left 3 months ago. Place is falling apart. You can work off your room and board until you get your bearings." "You don't even know if I can cook." "Can you?" "Yes." "Then we're settled." "Just like that?" He picked up the reins. "Just like that. You coming or not?" Eliza looked back at the station house. Through the window, she could see the station master still warming himself by the stove. Beyond that, the town. Somewhere in that collection of buildings, Victor Hale was probably laughing about the mousy girl who'd thought she deserved better. She looked at Cole Mercer, at his weathered face and his patched coat and his wagon that had seen better days. It wasn't a good choice, but it was a choice. She climbed up beside him. They didn't speak as the wagon rolled away from the station, away from the town, onto a road that was more mud than anything else. Eliza gripped the edge of the seat as they jolted over ruts, her trunk sliding around in the back. The landscape opened up around them, endless and empty and so different from Philadelphia, it might as well have been another country. The rain had stopped completely now, leaving everything clean and dripping. Eliza could smell grass and wet earth, and something else she couldn't name, something wild. "You always this quiet?" Cole asked. "You always pick up stranded women? You're the first." "Lucky me." He almost smiled. She saw it at the corner of his mouth, there and gone. "You always this sharp-tongued?" "Only when I'm terrified." That got a real reaction. He glanced at her, surprised. "I'm not going to hurt you." "I don't know that." "No," he agreed. "You don't. But if I wanted to hurt you, I wouldn't have done it in front of half the town." It was a terrible reassurance, but somehow it worked. Eliza felt her shoulders loosen slightly. "Why were you at the station?" she asked. "Supplies. I come into town once a month." "Good timing." "For you, maybe." They lapsed back into silence. Eliza watched the land roll by, trying not to think about what she was doing, where she was going, trying not to think about the fact that she was alone with a strange man heading to an isolated ranch with no one to miss her if she disappeared. But what choice did she have? The sun was setting by the time the ranch came into view. A low house, a barn that leaned slightly to the left, a few outbuildings scattered around like forgotten toys. Everything looked gray in the fading light. Tired. Cole pulled the wagon up to the house and set the brake. Home. Eliza climbed down, her legs shaky. The front door hung crooked on its hinges. The porch sagged in the middle. This wasn't poverty exactly, just neglect. "I'll get your trunk," Cole said. "You can take the room at the end of the hall. Stove's in the kitchen if you want coffee." He disappeared inside, leaving her standing in the yard. Eliza turned in a slow circle, taking it all in. The barn with its missing boards, the fence that needed mending, the garden plot choked with weeds. A job, he'd said, work off her room and board. She had a feeling she was going to earn every meal. Inside, the house smelled like dust and old smoke. The floors were bare wood, scuffed and scratched. The furniture was sparse, a table, a few chairs, a couch that had given up on life. But it was clean, more or less, and warm. The stove in the kitchen radiated heat, and Eliza found herself drawn to it like a moth. Cole set her trunk down in the hallway. "Your room's there," he pointed to a closed door. "Sheets are probably dusty. Haven't had anyone in there since my sister left." "You have a sister?" "Had. She got married, moved to Colorado." "And you've been alone since then?" "Didn't say I minded being alone." He moved into the kitchen and started pulling things out of a cupboard. Coffee, a dented pot, cups that didn't match. His movements were efficient but graceless, the actions of a man who'd been doing for himself too long. Eliza watched him struggle with the coffee pot and felt something shift inside her. Not pity, not exactly, but recognition, maybe, of someone who'd been abandoned in their own way. "Let me," she said. Cole stepped back without argument. Eliza took over, her hands finding the familiar rhythm of a task she'd done 1,000 times. The water, the grounds, the wait for it to boil. Simple. Ordinary. The first normal thing she'd done in days. They sat at the table with their coffee, not talking, just existing in the same space. Outside, the darkness was complete. Inside, the lamplight pushed against it, creating a small island of warmth. "You'll want to know the rules," Cole said finally. "All right. You do your work, I do mine. We don't get in each other's way. You want to leave, you leave. No questions." "That's it?" "That's it." Eliza wrapped her hands around her cup. "What if I steal from you?" "Will you?" "No. Then it won't be a problem." She studied him over the rim of her cup. His face was hard to read, all lines and shadows. But there was something steady about him, something that didn't shift or change. "I'll work hard," she said. "I promise." "Don't promise, just do it." "Why are you helping me?" He was quiet for a long time. Then, "Because nobody helped me when I needed it. Seemed like time to fix that." It wasn't a grand declaration. It wasn't even particularly kind. But it was honest. And somehow that mattered more than anything Victor Hale had ever written in his letters. Eliza finished her coffee and stood. "Thank you," Cole nodded. "Get some sleep. Morning comes early." Her room was small and plain, a bed, a dresser, a window that looked out at nothing. The sheets smelled like cedar, and when she shook them out, dust motes danced in the lamplight. Eliza made the bed, changed into her nightgown, and climbed under the covers. She should have cried, should have let out all the fear and humiliation and rage that had been building since Victor walked away. But she was too tired. She fell asleep to the sound of wind against the window and the creak of the house settling around her, and she didn't dream at all. Morning announced itself with cold and pale light. Eliza woke to the sound of someone moving around in the kitchen, boots on wood, the clang of metal on metal. She dressed quickly, her fingers clumsy on the buttons, and emerged to find Cole already up, already working. "Stove's hot," he said without looking at her. "There's eggs in the basket by the door, bacon in the cold box." Eliza got to work. She cooked like her mother had taught her, simple and filling, and when she set the plates on the table, Cole ate without comment. But he cleaned his plate, and that felt like approval. "What needs doing?" she asked when they'd finished. Cole stood and carried his dishes to the basin. Everything, take your pick. So she did. She started with the kitchen, scrubbing counters, washing windows, sweeping floors that probably hadn't seen a broom in months. The work was hard, and her hands were soft, not used to this kind of labor. By midday, her back ached and her palms were raw. But the kitchen was clean. Cole came in at noon, tracking mud, and Eliza opened her mouth to snap at him, then caught herself. This was his house. She was just the help. Floor's wet, she said instead. He looked down at his boots, then at the clean floor, then at her. Sorry. He backed out and left his boots on the porch. That became the pattern. Eliza cleaned, cooked, mended. Cole worked outside, fixing fences and tending livestock she rarely saw. They orbited each other like planets, close, but never quite touching. A week passed, then two. Eliza's hands toughened. Her back stopped aching. She learned the rhythms of the ranch. When to have breakfast ready, when to expect Cole back from the far pastures, when to keep out of his way. He wasn't cruel. He wasn't even unkind. He just wasn't anything. He existed. She existed. They shared space and meals and not much else, but the house was coming back to life. The floors gleamed, the windows let in light. The garden plot was cleared and ready for planting. One evening, as they sat at dinner, Cole spoke. You don't have to stay. Eliza looked up, surprised. What? You've been here 3 weeks. You've worked off what you owe. If you want to leave, head back to town. Try to find something else. You can. Do you want me to leave? I'm saying you have a choice. Eliza set down her fork. Outside, the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Through the window, she could see the garden she'd planted, the fence Cole had repaired, the barn that didn't lean quite so much anymore. I don't have anywhere to go, she said. That's not a reason to stay. Then what is? Cole didn't answer. He just looked at her with those gray eyes, and Eliza realized he was giving her permission to want this, to choose it, not because she was desperate, not because she had no other option, but because she wanted to. I'll stay, she said. If you'll have me. All right then. That was all. No grand speeches, no promises, just the simple fact of staying. The days grew longer. Spring came properly, bringing green to the hills and warmth to the air. Eliza planted vegetables and watched them grow. She mended Cole's shirts and noticed he wore them longer before getting them dirty. She cooked dinners that he ate slower, like he was savoring them. And slowly, so slowly she almost didn't notice, they started talking, not about anything important, just small things. The weather, the cattle. A hawk she'd seen circling the barn. But it was more than silence. One afternoon, she was hanging laundry when she heard hoofbeats. She turned to see a rider approaching, a woman on a gray mare, sitting straight-backed and elegant. The woman pulled up in the yard and dismounted with practiced ease. She was beautiful, Eliza realized with a sinking feeling. Blonde and polished, wearing a riding habit that probably cost more than everything Eliza owned. You must be the new housekeeper, the woman said. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. I'm Diane Winters. My father's ranch borders this one. Eliza Hart. Charming. Diane's gaze swept over the yard, the garden, the clean windows. You've certainly made some improvements. Cole must be pleased. I do my job. I'm sure you do. Diane moved toward the house. Is he here, Cole? In the south pasture. Pity. I had hoped to catch him. Diane turned back, studying Eliza with the same assessing look Victor had used, but colder, more calculating. You know, there was talk in town about Cole bringing home Victor Hale's reject. The word landed like a slap. Eliza felt her face burn. People wondered what he was thinking, Diane continued, taking in a charity case, but I suppose even Cole gets lonely. If you're here to see Mr. Mercer, you should come back when he's available. Mr. Mercer. Diane laughed. How formal. But then I suppose you have to be, don't you, given your position? Eliza wanted to lash out, wanted to say something cutting and cruel, but she just stood there, her hands full of wet laundry, her face hot with shame. Diane mounted her horse. I'll be seeing Cole at the spring dance next month. Do tell him I stopped by. She rode away, leaving Eliza standing in the yard, trembling with anger and something else, something that felt suspiciously like jealousy. That night she told Cole about the visit. Diane Winters? He frowned. What did she want? You, apparently. Cole's frown deepened. She say anything to you? Nothing worth repeating. He looked at her closely. She give you trouble? I can handle Diane Winters. That's not what I asked. Eliza turned away, focusing on the dishes. It's fine. She said there was talk. In town. About you bringing me here. Let them talk. Doesn't it bother you? No. He said it simply. Does it bother you? Yes, she wanted to say. It bothered her that she was still Victor Hale's reject, that she was the woman pitied and gossiped about, that even now, even here, she couldn't escape the weight of that humiliation. But she said, no. Cole didn't believe her. She could see it in his face. But he didn't push. Spring dance is in a month, he said instead. I know. You planning to go? Eliza laughed, sharp and bitter. And give them more to talk about? No, thank you. You shouldn't hide because of what people think. I'm not hiding. I'm being practical. Practical. Cole stood, his chair scraping against the floor. You've been practical your whole life, haven't you? Playing it safe. Doing what you're supposed to. And look where it got me. Yeah. He looked at her, really looked at her. Here. Working yourself to death on a ranch that isn't yours, for a man who barely talks to you. That's real safe. The words stung because they were true. Eliza set down the dish she'd been washing, her hands shaking. What do you want from me? She asked. I want you to stop acting like you're still waiting for permission to exist. I'm not. You are. You're hiding out here just like you hid in Philadelphia. Different place, same scared girl. Anger flared hot in her chest. You don't know anything about me. Then tell me. Why? So you can pity me too. I don't pity you. Cole's voice was hard. I'm tired of watching you shrink yourself down because of what one bastard said on a train platform. He wasn't wrong though, was he? The words burst out of her. I'm too thin, too old, too... He was wrong about everything that matters. Eliza stopped, stared at him. Cole took a step closer. You're strong. You work hard. You don't complain. You turned this place from a wreck into a home. That's what matters. Cole, go to the dance, he said. Hold your head up. Show them you're not ashamed. I'm not ashamed. Then prove it. He left her standing there, her heart pounding, her mind racing. The month passed in a blur of work and tension. Eliza threw herself into preparing for planting season, for the long Montana summer ahead. But Diane's words echoed in her head. Victor Hale's reject, charity case, and Cole's. Stop acting like you're still waiting for permission to exist. The night of the spring dance arrived. Eliza had told herself she wouldn't go. She'd stay home, stay safe, stay invisible. But when the evening came, she found herself pulling out her one good dress, the one she'd worn on the train, carefully cleaned and mended. She did her hair. She even found a ribbon. Cole was waiting in the kitchen when she emerged. He'd cleaned up too, traded his work clothes for something almost presentable. Ready? He asked. I don't know what I'm doing. Neither do I. Come on. The town hall was lit up like a lantern in the darkness, music spilling out into the night. Eliza could hear fiddles and laughter, could see shadows moving behind the windows. Her stomach clenched. We can leave any time you want, Cole said quietly. Promise? Promise. They walked in together, and the music faltered, just for a second. Heads turned. Conversations paused. Eliza felt the weight of every eye in the room, felt the judgment settling on her shoulders like snow. Then the music picks up again, and people turn back to their partners, their drinks, their own concerns. Eliza released a breath she hadn't known she was holding. See, Cole said. World didn't end. Night's still young. He almost smiled. They found a quiet corner and Eliza watched the dancers. She recognized some faces from town, shopkeepers, ranchers, their wives and daughters. And there, in the center of it all, Diane Winters, in a dress that probably cost more than the ranch, dancing with a man who watched her like she hung the moon. That's James Peterson, Cole said, following her gaze. Banker's son. They've been circling each other for years. She said she'd be here with you. Diane says a lot of things. She's beautiful. So's a rattlesnake. That startled a laugh out of Eliza. Cole's mouth quirked. "Dance with me," he said. "What?" "You heard me." "Cole, I can't." But he was already leading her onto the floor, his hand warm and solid in hers. The music was a waltz, slow and sweet, and Eliza let him guide her through the steps, his hand on her waist, her heart hammering. She stumbled once, twice. Cole steadied her without comment. "I'm terrible at this," she muttered. "You're fine. I'm stepping on your feet. They'll recover." She looked up at him then, really looked at him, at the lines around his eyes, the gray in his hair, the scar on his jaw she'd never asked about. He wasn't handsome like Victor. He wasn't polished or smooth, but he was real, and he was here. The song ended. Eliza stepped back, flushed and breathless. Around them, the other dancers were changing partners, laughing, moving on. But Cole didn't move. "Thank you," she said. "For what?" "For bringing me. For making me come. You came on your own." "Did I?" His eyes met hers and something passed between them. Something unspoken, but understood. Then someone called his name, a rancher he knew, waving him over. Cole hesitated, then released her hand. "I'll be right back." Eliza nodded and watched him go. She was alone in the crowd, surrounded by strangers and their barely concealed curiosity. But she didn't feel small anymore. She felt seen. The evening wore on. Eliza danced a few more times, with the storekeeper's son, with an older rancher who told her stories about the territory. She drank punch that was too sweet and ate cake that was too dry, and she smiled until her face hurt. And then Victor Hale walked in. She saw him before he saw her, saw him stride through the door like he owned the place, all confidence and charm, Diane Winters on his arm. Eliza's blood turned to ice. Victor was laughing at something Diane said, his hand possessive on her waist. They made a beautiful couple. Everyone thought so. Eliza could see it in the way heads turned, the way women whispered behind their hands. Then Victor's gaze swept the room and landed on her. His smile faltered. Just for a second. Then it was back, brighter than before. He was coming over. Eliza's hands clenched into fists. She looked around for Cole but couldn't see him in the crowd. She was alone. Again. "Miss Hart!" Victor stopped in front of her, Diane still on his arm. What a surprise. "Mr. Hale, I heard you'd found employment with Cole Mercer, wasn't it?" His tone made it sound sordid. "How industrious of you." "I work for my keep, honest work." "Of course." His smile was all teeth. "I meant no offense. I'm simply glad you landed on your feet. Things could have gone quite differently for you." Diane was watching this exchange with barely concealed glee. Eliza wanted to melt into the floor. "If you'll excuse me." "Actually," Victor said, "I owe you an apology." That stopped her. "What?" "My behavior at the station. It was ungentlemanly. I was harsh, and you didn't deserve that." He looked contrite, almost convincing. "I've thought about it quite a bit since then." "Have you?" "Yes, and I've come to realize I made a mistake, a rather significant one." Eliza's heart was beating too fast. "I don't understand." "I think you do." He took a step closer, lowering his voice. "I was hasty, cruel even, but I'd like to make amends." "Victor," Diane said, her voice sharp. "What are you—" "Give us a moment, darling." He didn't even look at her. His eyes were locked on Eliza. And suddenly Eliza understood. He wanted her back, or he wanted the option of having her back. Either way, it was a game to him. She was a game. "There's nothing to amend," she said coldly. "You made your choice. I made mine." "Did you, though?" Victor's gaze flicked past her toward the crowd. "Or did circumstances simply force your hand? Living on Mercer's charity, working as his housekeeper. That can't be the life you envisioned." "It's better than anything you offered." That landed. She saw it in the way his jaw tightened, the flash of anger in his eyes. But he covered it quickly. "Be reasonable, Eliza. You deserve better than scrubbing floors for a man who barely speaks. I can give you the life I promised. The home, the security, the respect." She laughed, bitter and sharp. "You humiliated me in front of a crowd of strangers. You discarded me like garbage. And now you think you can just— what? Snap your fingers and I'll come running back? People were starting to notice. Conversations were dying around them, heads turning. "You're making a scene," Victor said through clenched teeth. "No, you're making a scene, you and your guilty conscience." Eliza stepped closer, her voice low and hard. "I don't want your apology. I don't want anything from you. What I want is for you to leave me alone." She turned to walk away. Victor grabbed her arm. "Let go of me." "Just listen." She said let go, Cole's voice cold as winter. He was there suddenly, between them, and Victor's hand dropped like Eliza's arm had burned him. "Mercer." Victor recovered his composure. "We were just talking." "Didn't look like talking." "This is between me and Miss Hart. Nothing about her is between you and anyone." Cole's voice was quiet, but it carried. "You gave up that right on a train platform." The room had gone silent. Even the musicians had stopped playing. Everyone was watching now, and Eliza felt the weight of it, the scandal, the gossip that would follow. But she didn't care. Victor's face had gone red. "You have no claim on her. Neither do you. I made a mistake. I'm trying to fix it. You're trying to ease your conscience." Cole took a step forward. Victor took a step back. "But that's not Eliza's problem. So I'm going to say this once. Walk away." "Or what?" Cole didn't answer. He just looked at Victor with those steady gray eyes, and something in his expression made Victor's bluster drain away. "Fine." Victor straightened his coat. "She's not worth the trouble anyway." He turned and stalked away, Diane hurrying after him. The crowd parted for them, then closed again, buzzing with excitement. Eliza stood there, trembling, not with fear, with fury, with the sudden overwhelming realization that she'd just burned her last bridge. "Let's go," Cole said quietly. "I don't want to run." "We're not running. We're leaving. There's a difference." He offered his arm. Eliza took it, and together they walked through the crowd, heads high, while whispers followed in their wake. Outside, the night air was cool and clean. Eliza breathed it in, felt the anger slowly drain out of her. "Thank you," she said. "For what?" "For stepping in, for—" She couldn't finish. Her throat was too tight. Cole helped her into the wagon, his hands gentle. "He's not worth your tears." "I'm not crying." "Good." They rode in silence for a while, the town lights fading behind them, the stars coming out overhead. Eliza felt exhausted and exhilarated all at once, like she'd run a race and won. "Did you mean it?" she asked. "What you said to Victor?" "About what?" "That he has no claim on me." Cole didn't answer right away, then, "Yes." "What about you? Do you have a claim?" He looked at her then, and in the moonlight his eyes were dark, unreadable. "That's not for me to say." "Then who?" "You, Eliza. It's always been you." The words hung in the air between them. Eliza felt her breath catch, felt something shift inside her chest, like a door opening, like light flooding in. "I choose to stay," she said. "Not because I have nowhere else to go. Not because I'm afraid, but because I want to." Cole's hand found hers in the darkness. His fingers laced through hers, warm and solid and real. "Okay then." It wasn't a declaration of love, it wasn't a promise of forever. It was just the simple acknowledgement of a choice freely made. And somehow, that meant everything. They rode the rest of the way home in comfortable silence, their hands still joined, the night vast and quiet around them. And when they reached the ranch, when Cole helped her down from the wagon, Eliza looked up at the house. Her house now, in a way it hadn't been before, and felt something settle inside her. She was home. Not because someone had given it to her, but because she'd built it herself. The morning after the dance, Eliza woke to silence. Not the comfortable kind that had settled over the ranch in recent weeks, but something heavier, watchful. She lay there for a moment, staring at the ceiling, replaying the previous night in her mind. Victor's face when she'd rejected him. The way Cole's hand had felt in hers on the ride home. The choice she'd made. Not out of desperation this time, but something else entirely. She dressed and found Cole already gone, his coffee cup washed and turned upside down on the counter. Through the window, she could see him out by the fence line, hammering posts into ground that probably didn't need fixing. He was avoiding her. Eliza felt her stomach sink. Maybe she'd misread everything last night. Maybe that moment in the wagon had meant something different to him than it had to her. Maybe he regretted stepping in, regretted making a spectacle in front of the whole town. She made breakfast anyway, eggs, bacon, biscuits. When Cole came in at noon, tracking Mud again, he always tracked Mud, she set his plate down without a word. "Thanks," he said. They ate in silence, the kind that felt like a wall. Finally, Eliza couldn't stand it anymore. "Are we going to talk about last night?" Cole's fork paused halfway to his mouth. "What about it?" "Victor, the things you said, She gestured vaguely between them. "Everything. What's there to talk about?" "Cole." He set down his fork, looked at her with those gray eyes that gave nothing away. "You want me to apologize for running my mouth?" "No, I want you to tell me what it meant. It meant I don't like seeing men put their hands on women who don't want to be touched." "That's all?" "What else would it be?" Eliza felt heat rise in her cheeks. She'd been a fool. Again, reading into things that weren't there, building castles out of nothing. "Right. Of course. I just thought, never mind." She stood and started clearing the dishes. Cole caught her wrist. "Wait. Let go. Eliza, wait." His grip was gentle but firm. "I didn't mean hell." He released her and rubbed his face. "I'm not good at this." "At what?" "Talking. About things that matter." She sat back down slowly. "Then just say it plain." Cole was quiet for a long moment. Outside, a crow called from somewhere near the barn. Finally, he spoke. "I told myself when you showed up that it was just practical, extra hands, someone to keep the house from falling apart, that's all. And now? Now I don't know what it is." He looked at her, and something in his expression made her breath catch. "But it's not just practical anymore." The words hung between them like something fragile. Eliza didn't know what to say, didn't know if she should reach for him or run, or a knock at the door shattered the moment. They both turned. Through the window, Eliza could see a wagon in the yard. Two men stood on the porch, their hats in their hands. Cole stood. "Stay here." "Who is it?" "Don't know, but they look official." He opened the door and Eliza heard voices, low, serious. She crept closer, trying to hear. "Mr. Mercer? I'm Tom Bradshaw, land surveyor. This is Deputy Walsh. We need to speak with you about your property boundaries." Eliza's stomach clenched. Nothing good ever came from men in official capacities showing up unannounced. Cole stepped outside, closing the door behind him, but Eliza moved to the window and watched. The surveyor was unrolling papers, pointing to something. Cole's face went hard. The conversation went on for 10 minutes. Then the men tipped their hats and left, their wagon rolling back down the road. Cole stood in the yard, staring at nothing. Eliza went outside. What did they want? "There's a dispute about where my land ends and the Winters property begins." "Diane's family?" "Yeah." Cole's jaw worked. "They're claiming I've been grazing cattle on their land for the past year. Want me to move my fence line back 50 yards. Can they do that?" "If they're right, yes." "Are they right?" "No." He said it flatly. "My father bought this land 30 years ago. The boundaries haven't changed. But the Winters have a surveyor saying otherwise, and they've got money for lawyers. I don't." Eliza felt cold spread through her chest. "What happens if you lose?" "I lose grazing land, maybe water access, depending on where they draw the line. Could put me under. There has to be something you can do." "There is. I can prove the original boundaries, but that means finding the deed and the survey from when my father bought the place. And I don't have either." "Where would they be?" "If they exist, county office maybe, or in my father's papers, if he kept them." "You don't know?" Cole looked at her, and for the first time since she'd met him, he looked tired, defeated. "My father wasn't much for organization. When he died, I burned most of his things. Couldn't stand looking at them." "Why?" "Because he drank himself to death in that barn." Cole pointed toward the leaning structure. "And I found him, so no, I wasn't real careful about preserving his paperwork." The words landed like stones. Eliza reached for him without thinking, her hand on his arm. "I'm sorry. It was a long time ago. Doesn't make it easier." He didn't pull away from her touch. They stood there in the yard, the sun beating down, and Eliza felt the weight of everything pressing against them. The past, the present, the future trying to tear itself apart before it even had a chance to form. We'll find the papers, she said. We? You think I'm going to let you lose this place? Something flickered in Cole's expression. Not quite a smile, but close. You got a plan? We search everywhere. The house, the barn, anywhere your father might have kept important documents. And if we don't find them here, we go to the county office. County office is 2 days' ride. Then we ride for 2 days. Cole studied her. You don't have to do this. I know. This isn't your fight. Yes, it is. She said it firmly. This is my home too now. I'm not letting anyone take it without a fight. The words surprised her as much as they seemed to surprise him. But they were true. Somewhere between scrubbing floors and planting gardens and learning to stand up to men like Victor Hale, this place had become hers. Not in any legal sense, but in the way that mattered. They started searching that afternoon. The house first. Every drawer, every cupboard, every corner where papers might hide. They found receipts and old letters and a stack of newspapers from 1867, but nothing official. Nothing that proved ownership. The barn was worse. Years of neglect had turned it into a maze of broken equipment and rotting wood. Eliza climbed into the loft while Cole searched below, both of them coughing on dust and hay chaff. Anything? Cole called up. Mice? Eliza pushed aside a pile of moldy burlap. Lots of mice. She was about to give up when her hand hit something solid. A trunk, pushed far back under the eaves. It took all her strength to drag it into the light. Cole? I found something. He climbed up and together they pried open the trunk. Inside, more papers, ledgers from the ranch's early years. Letters in a woman's handwriting, Cole's mother maybe. A tintype photograph of a stern-looking man who had to be his father. And at the very bottom, wrapped in oilcloth, a deed. That's it, Cole said, his voice rough. He unfolded the document carefully. The paper was yellowed but intact, the ink still clear. Purchase of land from the territorial government, 1856, signed by William Mercer. Your father? Yeah. Eliza peered at the boundary descriptions. Does this match what the surveyor said? More than match. If this is right, the Winters are actually encroaching on my land, not the other way around. Then we have proof. We have a piece of paper. Whether that's enough? He trailed off, but Eliza heard what he wasn't saying. Whether it was enough against the Winters' money and influence remained to be seen. They took the deed inside and Cole spent the evening poring over it, comparing it to his own rough maps of the property. Eliza made dinner and watched him work, seeing the tension in his shoulders, the way he kept rubbing his eyes. You should rest, she said finally. Can't. Meeting with their lawyer is in 3 days. I need to be ready. You need to sleep. Eliza... I'm not arguing about this. Eat, then go to bed. The deed will still be here in the morning. He looked like he wanted to fight her on it. Then he sighed and set down his pencil. You're bossy when you want to be. Someone has to be. They ate in comfortable silence, and when Cole finally went to his room, Eliza stayed up. She couldn't sleep, couldn't stop thinking about what was at stake. This ranch was Cole's whole life. If he lost it, she didn't want to think about that. Instead, she pulled the deed toward her and started reading. The legal language was dense, full of terms she didn't understand. But she read it anyway, squinting in the lamplight, trying to make sense of measurements and coordinates and survey markers. That's when she saw it. A small notation at the bottom, almost missed. A reference to a secondary survey conducted in 1858, 2 years after the original purchase, filed with the territorial office. A secondary survey, which meant there were 2 sets of documentation, not just one. Eliza's heart started to pound. If they could find that second survey, it would be additional proof. Maybe enough to shut down the Winters' claim entirely. She waited until morning to tell Cole. He was up before dawn again, already reviewing the deed when she came into the kitchen. There's another survey, she said without preamble. What? She showed him the notation. See? Filed in 1858. If we can get a copy, the territorial office doesn't exist anymore. Those records would have been transferred to the county seat when Montana became a state. Then we go to the county seat. Eliza, that's 2 days each way. The meeting with the lawyer is in 3 days. So we postpone it. We can't just... Yes, we can. She crossed her arms. You said it yourself. The Winters have money and lawyers. We need every advantage we can get. If that second survey exists and we can find it, we bring it to the meeting. If it doesn't, we're no worse off than we are now." Cole stared at her. "You're serious?" "Completely. That's 4 days on the road, minimum. Sleeping rough, probably. It's not going to be comfortable." "Good thing I'm not afraid of a little discomfort." He almost smiled. "You sure about this?" "Are you?" "No, but I'm out of better options." They left that afternoon, taking what they needed in saddlebags. Cole had 2 horses, the big bay he used for ranch work and a smaller mare that had belonged to his sister. Eliza had never ridden much, but she learned fast, gritting her teeth through the soreness and keeping pace. The land opened up around them as they rode, vast and empty and beautiful in a way that still took her breath away. Mountains in the distance, their peaks still white with snow. Grass rolling like an ocean, skies so big it hurt to look at. They made camp the first night beside a creek. Cole built a fire while Eliza laid out their bedrolls, trying not to think about how close they'd be sleeping. How intimate this all was, the 2 of them alone under the stars. "You did good today," Cole said as they ate. "Kept up better than I expected." "Is that a compliment?" "It's an observation." "Sounds like a compliment to me." He almost smiled. "Take it however you want." They sat in silence for a while, the fire crackling between them. Somewhere in the darkness, a coyote called. Eliza shivered and pulled her coat tighter. "Cold?" Cole asked. "A little." He moved closer, close enough that she could feel the warmth of him. "Better?" "Yes." She didn't know who moved first. Maybe it was both of them at once, drawn together by something neither could name. But suddenly his arm was around her shoulders and her head was resting against his chest, and it felt right in a way nothing had felt right in a long time. "Cole?" "Yeah?" "What happens if we don't find the survey?" "Then we fight with what we have." "And if that's not enough?" He was quiet. Then I lose the ranch, pack up what I can carry, and start over somewhere else." "Would you?" "Would I what?" "Start over." "Don't have much choice, do I?" Eliza tilted her head to look up at him. The firelight caught the planes of his face, turning him into shadow and flame. "You always have a choice." "Do I?" "Yes." "What about you?" His voice was low. "If the ranch is gone, what do you do?" It was a fair question, one she'd been avoiding thinking about. If Cole lost everything, she'd be back where she started, alone, adrift, looking for the next place to land. "I don't know," she admitted, "but I'd figure it out. I always do." "You shouldn't have to." "Neither should you." They fell quiet again. Eliza closed her eyes, listening to the steady thump of Cole's heart beneath her ear. She should move, should go to her own bedroll, maintain some distance, some propriety, but she didn't want to. "Eliza?" "Hmm?" "I'm glad you stayed." The words were simple, unadorned, but they carried weight. "Me too," she whispered. She felt him shift, felt his hand come up to cup her face, and then he was kissing her, soft and careful, like he thought she might break. Eliza kissed him back, her hands fisting in his shirt, pulling him closer. It wasn't desperate or wild, it was just real, true. A promise of something neither of them had the words for yet. When they pulled apart, Cole rested his forehead against hers. "This complicates things." "I know. We should probably talk about later." Eliza kissed him again. "We'll talk about it later." They didn't sleep together that night, not in the way that mattered, but they slept close, their bedrolls pushed together, Cole's arm around her waist. And when Eliza woke to the pale light of dawn, she felt safer than she had in years. The county seat was a real town, not like Salvation with its mud streets and weathered buildings. This place had brick storefronts and wooden sidewalks and people who moved with purpose. Eliza felt small riding through it, aware of the stares they drew. A rough rancher and a woman in men's riding clothes, both covered in trail dust. The county office was a squat building near the center of town. Inside, a clerk with spectacles and ink-stained fingers looked up from his ledger. "Help you? We need to access land records," Cole said. Specifically, surveys filed under William Mercer, 1856 to 1860. The clerk sighed like they'd asked him to move a mountain. "That far back? Those records are in the archives. Take me an hour just to find the right boxes. We'll wait. Cost you 50 cents. Cole pulled out the money without hesitation. The clerk took it and disappeared into a back room. They heard him moving things around, muttering to himself. Eliza and Cole sat on a bench by the window, waiting. The minutes dragged. What if it's not here? Eliza asked quietly. Then we go back with what we have. Cole, I know. He took her hand. I know. The clerk returned 40 minutes later, carrying a wooden box full of papers. Everything filed under Mercer between 1855 and 1862. You can look through it here, but nothing leaves the building. They spread the papers out on a table. Deeds, correspondence, tax records. Eliza's eyes started to blur after the first dozen documents. Everything looked the same, cramped handwriting, legal jargon, dates that meant nothing. Here. Cole's voice was tight. He held up a paper, his hand shaking slightly. Survey conducted by James Whitmore, Territorial Surveyor, October 1858, property of William Mercer. Eliza looked at the document. It was more detailed than the deed, with precise measurements and reference points, and the boundaries matched what Cole had claimed. That's it, she breathed. That's proof. We need a copy. The clerk made them pay another $1 for a certified copy, but it was worth it. They walked out of that building with the original deed and the survey copy, 2 pieces of paper that might save everything. We did it, Eliza said. She felt giddy, light. Cole, we actually did it. He pulled her into his arms right there on the street, not caring who saw. We did. They stayed in town that night, renting a room at a boarding house that was clean but spare. 2 beds, a washstand, a window that looked out on the main street. Eliza washed the trail dust off her face and hands, watching Cole through the mirror. He was sitting on his bed, staring at the survey like he couldn't quite believe it was real. You should rest, she said. Can't. Too keyed up. She crossed to him, took the paper from his hands, and set it aside. Then talk to me. About what? About what happens next. After we win. You're that confident? I have to be. Otherwise, what's the point? Cole looked at her for a long moment. Then he said, I've been thinking about what you said, about choices. And? And maybe I've been making the wrong ones. Keeping people at arm's length. Not letting anyone in. Seems safer that way. Was it? No. He reached for her hand. Just lonely. Eliza's throat tightened. I know something about that. I know you do. His thumb traced circles on her palm, which is why I'm asking. If we win this, if we keep the ranch, would you stay? Not as hired help, as what? As my partner. In all of it. The words hung in the air between them. Eliza felt her heart hammering against her ribs. This was what she'd wanted, wasn't it? Security, a home. Someone who saw her as more than just a convenience. But it was also terrifying, trusting someone again, believing in promises again. You don't have to answer now, Cole said quickly. I just wanted you to know. Whatever happens, I want you here. With me. Eliza kissed him instead of answering. Kissed him until words didn't matter anymore. Until the only thing that existed was the two of them in that small room, holding onto each other like they were the only solid things in a world that kept shifting beneath their feet. They rode back to Salvation the next day, the survey copy tucked safely in Cole's coat. The journey felt shorter somehow. Maybe because they knew where they were going, maybe because they weren't running anymore. When the ranch came into view, the house, the barn, the fence line they'd fought so hard to prove, Eliza felt something settle in her chest. Relief. Belonging. Home. They had 2 days before the meeting with the Winters lawyer. 2 days to prepare, to rest, to gather their courage for the fight ahead. But on the morning of the second day, Diane Winters showed up. She rode into the yard on that gray mare, her riding habit perfect, her expression cold. Eliza was in the garden when she arrived, and she straightened slowly, wiping dirt from her hands. Miss Hart, Diane said, is Cole here? In the barn. Fetch him, would you? I need to speak with him. Fetch him yourself. I'm not your servant. Diane's smile was knife-sharp. No, you're his. How quaint. Eliza felt heat rise in her face, but before she could respond, Cole emerged from the barn. He saw Diane and his expression closed down. What do you want? Such hospitality. Diane dismounted gracefully. I came to make you an offer, Cole, before tomorrow's unpleasantness. I'm listening. My father is willing to drop the dispute. Completely. No lawyers, no surveyors, no fight. You keep your fence line exactly where it is. Cole's eyes narrowed. In exchange for what? Your cooperation with another matter. My father wants to buy the water rights to that creek that runs through your north pasture. He'll pay fair market value. That creek is the only reliable water source I have. Which is why he's willing to be generous. $500, Cole. Think what you could do with that kind of money. It was a lot of money. Eliza knew it, and so did Cole. $500 could buy new equipment, repair the barn, stock the ranch for winter twice over. It could also kill the ranch if he lost his water. No, Cole said flatly. Diane's smile faltered. You're not even going to consider it? There's nothing to consider. The answer is no. You're being foolish. My father will win this dispute. You know he will. He has the resources, the connections. You have, what? A piece of paper and stubbornness? She glanced at Eliza. Oh, and your charity case. I'm sure she's very helpful. Eliza opened her mouth to snap back, but Cole beat her to it. Get off my property. Cole? Now. Diane's face went hard. You're making a mistake. My father doesn't take kindly to being refused. That sounds like a threat. It's a fact. Diane mounted her horse. See you tomorrow, Cole. I hope you're ready to lose. She rode off, leaving dust and anger in her wake. Cole watched her go, his jaw tight. $500, Eliza said quietly. That's a trap. Her father wouldn't offer that kind of money unless he planned to leverage those water rights into taking more. Maybe all of it. But what if you're wrong? What if... I'm not wrong. He turned to her. And even if I was, I'm not selling, not to them. Eliza nodded. She understood. This wasn't just about money or water. It was about principle. About refusing to let people like the Winters take what wasn't theirs. The meeting was set for 10 o'clock the next morning at the town hall. Cole wore his best shirt, the one Eliza had mended for him. She wore her good dress, the one from the dance. They looked respectable, if not prosperous. The Winters were already there when they arrived. Diane, her father, a silver-haired man with cold eyes, and their lawyer, a sharp-faced man in an expensive suit. They sat on one side of a long table. Cole and Eliza sat on the other. The land surveyor was there too, along with Deputy Walsh and the town mayor acting as mediator. Gentlemen? Miss Hart? The mayor cleared his throat. We're here to resolve a boundary dispute between the Winters Ranch and the Mercer Ranch. Mr. Winters, your surveyor has submitted findings that indicate... Wait! Cole laid the deed and survey copy on the table. Before we go any further, I want these entered into the record. The Winters lawyer picked up the documents, his expression skeptical. Then he read them. His skepticism turned to irritation. These are concerning, he admitted. Concerning? Cole's voice was hard. They're proof. Original deed from 1856, secondary survey from 1858. Both show the boundaries exactly where I've maintained them. Mr. Winters leaned forward. Those documents are 30 years old. Property lines can shift, not without new surveys, which you don't have. The lawyer whispered something to Mr. Winters. Diane was glaring at Cole like she wanted to set him on fire. Eliza kept her hands folded in her lap, trying to look calm even though her heart was racing. The surveyor's report is very clear, the lawyer tried again. Based on current landscape features... Landscape features change, Cole interrupted. Creeks shift, trees fall, fences get moved. That's why you use permanent markers. Stone cairns, iron posts. And according to this survey, all of those markers put the boundary exactly where I say it is. There was a long silence. The mayor looked at the documents, then at the surveyor. Can you verify these permanent markers? The surveyor shifted uncomfortably. I'd have to go back out to the property. Check against the survey descriptions. Then I suggest we do that before we proceed any further. Mr. Winters' face darkened. This is a waste of time. My surveyor has already made claims that are now in dispute, the mayor said firmly. We'll reconvene after a field survey is conducted, using these documents as reference. It wasn't a victory. Not yet. But it was a delay. A chance. The Winters stood to leave. As they passed, Diane leaned close to Eliza. Enjoy it while it lasts, she murmured. This isn't over. I know, Eliza said. But neither are we. Outside, Cole let out a breath he'd been holding. That went better than expected. They're going to fight dirty now. Probably. Are you worried? Yes. He looked at her. But I'm also hopeful, which is new. They rode back to the ranch in silence, both lost in thought. The survey would happen in a week, maybe 2. Until then, all they could do was wait, and work, and hope that truth was enough. That night, lying in her bed, Eliza stared at the ceiling and thought about Diane's words. This isn't over. No, it wasn't. The Winters wouldn't give up just because Cole had produced documents. They'd find another angle, another attack. But for the first time since she'd stepped off that train, Eliza wasn't afraid of the fight. She was ready for it, ready to defend what was hers. Because somewhere along the way, this place had stopped being just shelter. It had become something worth fighting for. And so had the man who'd offered it to her. The week that followed felt like waiting for a storm that wouldn't break. Eliza worked herself to exhaustion during the day, planting, mending, scrubbing, anything to keep her hands busy and her mind from spinning in circles. Cole did the same, riding fence lines that didn't need riding, checking cattle that didn't need checking. They were both avoiding the obvious, dancing around the tension that had settled over the ranch like fog. On the 3rd day, a rider came. Not Diane this time, but a boy from town, maybe 14, with a folded note in his hand. For Mr. Mercer, he said, breathless from the ride. Cole opened it right there in the yard. Eliza watched his face go tight. What is it? Survey's been moved up. Tomorrow morning instead of next week. Why? Doesn't say. He crumpled the note in his fist. But I can guess. Winters wants this done fast before I have time to prepare. You're prepared. We have the documents. We know where the markers are. And they have money to make problems disappear. Cole's voice was bitter. You don't understand how this works, Eliza. Men like Winters don't play fair. They stack the deck until the game's rigged in their favor. Then we unstack it. How? She didn't have an answer. Not a good one, anyway. But she refused to give in to the despair she could see creeping into Cole's eyes. We show up, she said firmly. We make them prove every claim. We don't make it easy. Cole looked at her for a long moment. Then something in his expression softened. When did you get so stubborn? I learned from someone. That almost got a smile out of him. Almost. They spent the evening going over the survey documents again, memorizing every detail. The stone cairn on the North Ridge. The iron post near the creek crossing. The lightning-struck oak that marked the eastern corner. Everything that proved the boundaries were where Cole said they were. Eliza made coffee, and they drank it black and bitter, sitting at the kitchen table while moths battered themselves against the lamp glass. Outside, the night pressed close. You should sleep, Cole said eventually. So should you. Can't. Mine won't quiet down. Eliza reached across the table and took his hand. His fingers were calloused, rough from work, but they closed around hers with surprising gentleness. Whatever happens tomorrow, she said, we face it together. You don't have to. I know I don't have to. I want to. Cole's thumb traced the back of her hand. I never thanked you for coming with me to the county seat, for all of this. You don't need to thank me. Yeah, I do. He met her eyes. You could have walked away a dozen times by now. Nobody would blame you, but you stayed. Where else would I go? Anywhere. You're not trapped here, Eliza. You know that, right? She did know. That was the strange part. She wasn't the desperate woman who'd stepped off the train 3 months ago. She had skills now, confidence, the knowledge that she could survive on her own if she had to. She could find work in town, maybe even save enough to move somewhere bigger, somewhere with more opportunities. But she didn't want to. I'm not staying because I'm trapped, she said quietly. I'm staying because this is home. The word hung between them. Home. Such a simple thing, but weighted with everything they'd built together. The clean floors and mended fences, the garden she'd planted, the meals they'd shared, the quiet comfort of knowing someone else was there, solid and real, at the end of each day. Cole stood and pulled her up with him. For a moment they just stood there, hands clasped, the lamp casting long shadows across the kitchen floor. Then he kissed her, slow and deep and full of things neither of them had the words for yet. When they pulled apart, Eliza rested her forehead against his chest, listening to the steady thump of his heart. Whatever happens tomorrow, she started. We'll handle it, Cole finished. Together. It wasn't a promise. Promises were fragile things, too easily broken. But it was something, an acknowledgement, a choice they were both making to stand side by side no matter what came next. They slept that night in their separate rooms, but Eliza lay awake for hours, listening to the house settle and creak around her. She thought about Philadelphia, about the girl she'd been there, small and scared and always waiting for permission. She thought about Victor Hale and the humiliation that had brought her to this place. She thought about all the ways her life could have gone differently, and she was grateful it hadn't. Morning came too fast. The surveyor arrived with the mayor and Deputy Walsh at 8 o'clock sharp. The Winters showed up 15 minutes later in a fancy carriage, Diane looking smug, her father looking bored, their lawyer looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. "Shall we begin?" the surveyor said. He was a different man than the one who'd done the Winters' original survey, younger, nervous, clearly aware he was stepping into something complicated. They started at the North Ridge. The survey from 1858 described a cairn of stacked stones marking the northwest corner of the Mercer property. Cole led them straight to it, a pile of rocks weathered by decades but still standing exactly where the old survey said it would be. "There," Cole said, "just like the document describes. 5 feet high, made of river stone." The surveyor examined it, taking measurements, making notes. The Winters' lawyer hovered at his shoulder, frowning. "This could have been built any time," he said. "There's no way to prove it's the original marker. Except that it matches the exact location given in the 1858 survey," Cole shot back. "Down to the degree of longitude. You think I built that in the last month?" "I'm simply pointing out, You're pointing out nothing." Cole's voice was hard. "The marker is there, exactly where it should be. That's proof." They moved on to the creek crossing. The iron post was harder to find. 60 years of erosion had buried it nearly to the top, but Cole knew where to look. He got down on his hands and knees and dug until the post emerged, rusted but solid, the Mercer brand still visible on the metal. "Iron post, branded with a capital M," the surveyor read from the old survey. "Located 12 yards north of the creek ford." He paced it off. 12 yards exactly. Eliza watched the Winters' faces as the evidence mounted. Mr. Winters' boredom had turned to irritation. Diane looked furious. Their lawyer was scribbling notes furiously, probably trying to find loopholes. The last marker was the lightning-struck oak on the eastern boundary. It was a massive thing, split down the middle by some long-ago storm, but still alive, still standing. The survey described it perfectly. Height, circumference, even the angle of the split. "Satisfied?" Cole asked the surveyor. The young man looked uncomfortable. "The markers do match the historical survey. I'll need to file a full report, but based on what you're seeing, the boundary is exactly where Mr. Mercer has maintained it," the mayor interrupted, "which means there's no encroachment, no dispute." "Now hold on," Mr. Winters started. "No, you hold on." The mayor's voice was sharp. "You brought a claim of boundary violation. Mr. Mercer has provided historical documentation and physical evidence proving his property lines. Unless you have evidence to the contrary, this matter is settled." The Winters' lawyer whispered urgently in his client's ear. Mr. Winters' face was red, his jaw clenched. Diane looked like she wanted to throw something. "This isn't over," Mr. Winters said finally. "We'll be reviewing our options." "You do that," Cole said. "In the meantime, keep your cattle off my land." The Winters left in a cloud of dust and anger. The surveyor promised to file his official report within the week. The mayor shook Cole's hand. "You did good, son. Standing up to men like that isn't easy. Wouldn't have managed it without her." Cole glanced at Eliza. "She's the one who found the second survey." The mayor tipped his hat to Eliza. "Well done, miss. This town needs more people willing to fight for what's right." They rode back to the ranch in silence. Eliza kept waiting for the relief to hit, the joy of victory, but all she felt was tired and wary. Mr. Winters' parting words echoed in her head. "This isn't over." "You're quiet," Cole said as they unsaddled the horses. "Just thinking. About how men like that don't give up. They'll find another way to come at you." "Probably." Cole hung the saddle on its peg. "But they didn't win today. That's something." "Is it enough?" "Has to be. But Eliza wasn't convinced. She'd seen the look in Mr. Winter's eyes, the cold calculation. He wasn't done with them, not by a long shot. She was right. 3 days later, another rider came, this time with an official-looking envelope sealed with red wax. Cole opened it at the kitchen table. Eliza watched the color drain from his face. "What is it?" "A lawsuit." His voice was hollow. "The Winters are suing me for damages. They claim my cattle destroyed their grazing land. Want $500 in compensation." "That's insane. Your cattle never—" "Doesn't matter if it's true. What matters is I'll have to defend against it in court. And that means lawyers, which means money I don't have." Eliza felt cold spread through her chest. How much would a lawyer cost? More than $500. Way more. "So what do we do?" Cole set the letter down carefully, like it might explode. "I don't know." The words hung in the air. For the first time since Eliza had known him, Cole looked defeated, lost. She couldn't let that stand. "We fight it," she said. "With what? I barely have enough to get through winter. I can't afford—" "Then we find a way. We sell something. I don't know, Cole, but we don't just roll over and let them win." "Eliza?" "No." She stood, her hands flat on the table. "You told me to stop acting like I was waiting for permission to exist. Well, right back at you. This is your land, your life. You don't get to give up just because they're making it hard." Cole looked at her like he was seeing her for the first time. "When did you get so fierce?" "When I had something worth fighting for." The words surprised her as much as they seemed to surprise him. But they were true. This ranch, this life, this man, they mattered more than safety, more than comfort, more than avoiding the fight. Cole stood and pulled her into his arms. "Okay," he said against her hair. "Okay. We fight. Together. Together." But that night, lying awake in the darkness, Eliza felt the fear creeping back in. The Winters had resources they didn't, power they couldn't match. And if Cole lost the lawsuit, lost the ranch, where would that leave them? She pushed the thought away. They'd figure it out. They had to. The next week brought more trouble. The bank sent a notice that Cole's mortgage payment was coming due, $200 by the end of the month. Then one of the cows broke a leg and had to be put down. Then the roof started leaking in the back bedroom. Everything was falling apart at once. Eliza watched Cole grow quieter, more withdrawn. He still worked from dawn to dusk, still ate the meals she cooked, still kissed her goodnight. But something had shifted. The hope she'd seen growing in him was fading, replaced by grim resignation. "Talk to me," she said one evening. "Nothing to talk about." "Cole?" He set down his fork. "What do you want me to say? That it's going to be fine? That we'll figure it out? I don't know if that's true anymore." "So what, you just give up?" "I'm being realistic." "You're being defeatist." Eliza stood, her chair scraping against the floor. "The man who picked me up at that train station wouldn't have quit this easily. That man didn't have this many problems." "Yes, he did. He just handled them differently." Cole looked up at her, his eyes dark. "What do you want from me, Eliza?" "I want you to fight. I want you to believe we can win this. And if we can't, what then?" "Then we lose. But at least we lose trying." The silence stretched between them. Outside, the wind picked up, rattling the windows. "I'm scared," Cole said finally. The admission seemed to cost him. "I'm scared of losing everything. The ranch, the life we're building, you." Eliza's anger dissolved. She moved around the table and knelt beside his chair, taking his hands in hers. "You're not going to lose me," she said quietly. "I'm not here because of the ranch. I'm here because of you. But if I can't provide, I don't need you to provide. I need you to be here, present, fighting alongside me, not disappearing into your own head." Cole pulled her up into his lap, his arms tight around her. "I don't know how to do this," he said against her shoulder. "How to let someone in. How to not push away when things get hard." "You learn. We both learn." They sat like that for a long time, holding each other in the lamplight while the wind howled outside. And slowly, Eliza felt some of the tension leave Cole's body. Not all of it, but enough. "Okay," he said finally. "Okay. We figure this out. Together." "Together," Eliza echoed. The lawsuit hearing was set for 3 weeks out. They spent that time trying to scrape together money for a lawyer, but it was hopeless. Every dollar went to keeping the ranch running, to making the mortgage payment, to basic survival. Finally, Cole made a decision. "I'm going to represent myself," he said. "You can't. I don't have a choice. We can't afford a lawyer, and I'm not going to beg for charity." "Then let me help. I can take notes, organize the documents." "Eliza, I'm not asking permission, Cole. I'm telling you. We do this together or not at all." He looked at her for a long moment. Then he nodded. "Okay, together." They prepared as best they could, going over every detail of the case. The Winters claimed Cole's cattle had damaged their grazing land, but they had no proof, no witnesses, no documentation, just accusations. "They're counting on you not being able to defend yourself," Eliza said. "On you rolling over." "Well, they're going to be disappointed." The day of the hearing arrived cold and gray. They rode into town together, Eliza in the same dress she'd worn to the boundary survey, Cole in his cleanest shirt. The courthouse was a 2-story brick building that smelled like old wood and older secrets. The Winters were already there with their lawyer. And someone else. Victor Hale. Eliza felt her stomach drop. Victor stood beside Diane, looking polished and confident, his hand resting possessively on her arm. "What's he doing here?" Eliza whispered. "I don't know, but it can't be good." They took their seats. The judge, a heavy-set man with tired eyes, banged his gavel. "Case of Winters versus Mercer. Claims of property damage. Mr. Winters, you may present your case." The Winters lawyer stood and launched into his argument. Cole's cattle had repeatedly trespassed on Winters' land, destroying valuable grazing, contaminating water sources, causing hundreds of dollars in damage. It was all lies, but it was presented smoothly, professionally. When it was Cole's turn, he stood slowly. Eliza could see his hand shaking slightly, but his voice was steady. "Your Honor, everything Mr. Winters' lawyer just said is false. My cattle have never trespassed on Winters' land. The boundary dispute was settled last month. The survey proved my fence line is exactly where it should be." "The boundary dispute is irrelevant to this case," the Winters' lawyer interrupted. "This is about damages that occurred before there was any dispute at all," Cole cut in. "Before your client even claimed there was a problem. So how could my cattle have damaged land that wasn't in dispute?" The judge frowned. "He has a point, Counselor. Your Honor, we have a witness, someone who saw Mr. Mercer's cattle on Winters' property, repeatedly." Eliza's blood went cold. A witness. They hadn't prepared for that. "Call your witness," the judge said. Victor stood. Eliza couldn't breathe. This was it. This was how the Winters were going to win, by using Victor to lie on the stand. Victor took the oath and sat in the witness box, looking calm and collected. "State your name for the record." "Victor Hale." "And how do you know the defendant?" "I don't, but I know Miss Eliza Hart, who lives on his property." Victor's gaze found Eliza in the gallery. "She was supposed to marry me, before she decided to take up with Mercer instead." The courtroom erupted in whispers. The judge banged his gavel. "Order. Mr. Hale, stick to the facts relevant to this case." "Of course, Your Honor. I simply mention it to establish that I'm familiar with the Mercer Ranch. I ride past it regularly. And on multiple occasions between February and April, I observed cattle bearing the Mercer brand grazing on land that clearly belonged to the Winters' property." "That's a lie," Cole said, standing. "Mr. Mercer, sit down." "He's lying. My cattle were never—" "Sit down, or I'll hold you in contempt." Cole sat, his jaw clenched so tight Eliza could see the muscle jumping. The Winters lawyer smiled. "Can you describe these occasions in detail, Mr. Hale?" Victor proceeded to spin a detailed story. Dates, times, specific locations. He described the cattle, the broken fence they supposedly came through, the damage they caused. It was all fiction, but it sounded convincing. When he finished, the judge turned to Cole. "Do you wish to cross-examine the witness?" Cole stood. Eliza could see him trying to think, trying to find holes in Victor's testimony. But Victor had been thorough, too thorough. "Mr. Hale," Cole started, "you say you saw my cattle on Winters' land in February?" "That's correct." "February in Montana. Snow on the ground. Hard to see brands from a distance. I have excellent eyesight. And you just happened to be riding past my ranch multiple times?" I ride all over this territory. It's not unusual. Cole tried a few more questions, but Victor had an answer for everything. Finally, Cole sat down, frustration written across his face. The judge deliberated for all of 10 minutes. Then he returned. Based on the testimony presented, I find in favor of the plaintiff. Mr. Mercer, you are ordered to pay $500 in damages within 30 days. The gavel came down. Eliza felt the world tilt. $500. They didn't have it. Even if they sold everything they owned, they wouldn't have it. The Winters left looking triumphant. Victor paused as he passed Eliza's seat. Should have taken my offer when you had the chance, he said quietly. Both of you. Eliza wanted to spit at him, wanted to scream, but she just sat there, numb, while the courtroom emptied around them. Cole stood slowly. Let's go home. The ride back was silent. What was there to say? They'd lost. Despite everything, the evidence, the truth, the fight, they'd lost because the Winters had bought themselves a witness willing to lie. At the ranch, Cole went straight to the barn. Eliza followed him. Talk to me, she said. I need to think. Cole, please, Eliza, just give me some space. She left him there and went into the house. The kitchen was exactly as they'd left it that morning. Dishes clean, floor swept, everything in order. But it all felt hollow now, temporary, like they were living in a structure that was already condemned. Eliza sat at the table and put her head in her hands. She didn't cry. She was too angry for tears. An hour passed, then 2. Finally, Cole came in. His face was set, determined. I'm going to sell the ranch, he said. What? It's the only way. I sell to the Winters, use the money to pay the judgment, and clear the mortgage. Whatever's left, we take and start over somewhere else. No. Eliza, no. She stood. We are not selling, not to them. We don't have a choice. There's always a choice. Her voice was shaking. You taught me that. This is different. How? How is this different than me standing on that platform, broken and humiliated, ready to give up? You didn't let me. You offered me another way, so I'm offering you one now. What way? We're out of options. Then we find new ones. Eliza grabbed his hands. We have 30 days. 30 days to come up with $500. We can do this. How? I don't know yet, but we figure it out, together, remember? Cole looked at her and slowly something shifted in his expression. The defeat faded, replaced by something harder, more determined. Okay, he said. 30 days. We try. We try, Eliza agreed. But even as she said it, she didn't know how they were going to manage it. $500 might as well have been $5,000. They had no assets to sell, no wealthy relatives to borrow from, no magical solution. All they had was each other. And 30 days. That night, they lay in bed. Cole's bed this time. Eliza having finally abandoned the pretense of separate rooms. She rested her head on his chest and listened to his heartbeat, steady and strong despite everything. What if we can't do it? Cole asked quietly. Then we don't. But at least we'll know we tried everything. You really believe that's enough? I have to. Otherwise, what's the point of any of this? Cole's arm tightened around her. I love you, he said. Simple, direct. The first time either of them had said it out loud. Eliza felt tears prick her eyes. I love you too. Even if we lose everything? We're not going to lose everything. We still have this. Each other. That's worth more than any ranch. You sure about that? Yes. And she was. That was the strange part. The ranch mattered, but it wasn't everything. What mattered was the choice they'd made to stand together, to fight for something worth having. Even if they lost, they'd still have that. But Eliza wasn't ready to lose yet. The next morning, she woke with an idea forming. It was crazy, probably impossible, but it was something. What if we asked the town for help? She said over breakfast. Cole looked up from his coffee. What? The town. The people we've helped, who know us. What if we asked them to contribute, just a little each, enough to cover the judgment? Eliza, nobody has that kind of money to spare. Not individually, but together. Maybe. It's worth trying. Cole was quiet for a long moment. Then he shook his head. I'm not begging. It's not begging. It's asking for help. There's a difference. Not to me. Eliza wanted to argue, but she could see the stubborn set of his jaw. Pride. That damn pride that had kept him isolated for so long. But maybe there was another way. What if I asked, she said. What if I went into town, talked to people? You wouldn't have to beg. I'd do it. That's worse. Why? Because then I'm hiding behind you, using you to what? Get help we desperately need? Cole, this isn't about pride anymore. This is about survival. He stood abruptly, his chair scraping. I need to check the fence line. Cole. But he was already gone, leaving Eliza alone with her half-formed plan and the sinking feeling that pride was going to cost them everything. She went into town anyway, without telling him, without asking permission, because someone had to try. The general store smelled like coffee and sawdust. Eliza stood in the doorway, her hands clenched at her sides, trying to gather the courage to walk in. Through the window, she could see Mrs. Patterson behind the counter, weighing out flour for a customer. The same Mrs. Patterson who'd watched Victor reject her on that train platform, who'd probably gossiped about it for weeks after. Eliza forced herself forward. The bell above the door chimed. Mrs. Patterson looked up and her expression shifted. Surprise, then something that might have been curiosity. Miss Hart, didn't expect to see you in town today. I need to talk to you about Cole Mercer. The customer, an older woman Eliza didn't recognize, perked up immediately. Small towns lived on gossip like air. Mrs. Patterson handed over the flour. That'll be 30 cents, Mrs. Bowen. The woman paid slowly, clearly hoping to overhear whatever came next. But Mrs. Patterson just smiled and waited until she left before turning back to Eliza. Now then, what about Cole Mercer? Eliza had practiced this on the ride into town, had planned out exactly what to say, but now that she was here, the words felt clumsy in her mouth. He's in trouble. The Winter sued him for damages, cattle trespassing on their land. It's all lies. But they had a witness and the judge ruled against him, $500. He has 30 days to pay. Mrs. Patterson's expression didn't change. That's a lot of money. I know, which is why I'm here. Cole won't ask for help. His pride won't let him. But I'm asking, not for charity, for fairness. The Winters are trying to destroy him because he wouldn't sell them his water rights, because he stood up to them. And you think people in this town care about that? The bluntness stung, but Eliza held her ground. I think some might. I think there are people who are tired of the Winters running everything, who might want to help if they knew it mattered. Mrs. Patterson was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, You know what people said about you when you first came here? I can imagine. They said you were pitiful, a woman so desperate she'd travel across the country for a man she'd never met. And when Victor threw you away, they said it was what you deserved, for being foolish. Each word was a small cut. Eliza felt her face burn, but she didn't look away. But then, Mrs. Patterson continued, You went with Cole, and people said that was worse, that you'd gone from one bad situation to another, trading dignity for a roof. Is there a point to this? The point is, you proved them wrong. You worked. You built something. You stood up to Victor at that dance, and you stood beside Cole in that courtroom. People noticed. Noticed enough to help? Mrs. Patterson reached under the counter and pulled out a small tin. She opened it, counted out coins. $5. It's not much, she said, but it's what I can spare, and I'll talk to others. No promises, but I'll talk. Eliza felt her throat tighten. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. $5 won't save a ranch. But it was a start. Eliza spent the next 3 hours going door to door. The blacksmith gave her $2. The woman who ran the boarding house gave 50 cents and a lecture about the importance of marriage. The banker's clerk, a young man who'd danced with her once, gave $1 and blushed the entire time. Some people slammed doors in her face. Others told her outright that Cole Mercer's problems weren't their concern. One man laughed and asked if she was selling herself to raise the money. By the time the sun started to sink, Eliza had collected $43.50. It felt like both everything and nothing. She was heading back to the wagon when she heard her name. Miss Hart. She turned. Diane Winters stood behind her, perfect as always in a burgundy dress that probably cost more than the entire amount Eliza had collected. Going door to door like a beggar, Diane said. How humiliating for you. What do you want, Diane? To offer you a choice. A real one this time. Diane stepped closer. My father is willing to buy the Mercer ranch. Full price, enough to cover the judgment and leave Cole with something to start over. All he has to do is sign. We're not selling. You say that now, but you will. In 3 weeks, when the deadline comes and you're still hundreds of dollars short, you'll sell. And my father will pay less then, because desperation drives down prices. Maybe. Or maybe we'll find another way. Diane laughed. With what? $43? That's what you collected today, isn't it? I saw you crawling around town, hat in hand. It was pathetic. Eliza felt anger flash hot in her chest. At least I'm trying. At least I'm not hiding behind money and lies. Trying. Diane said the word like it tasted bad. You really think that matters? You think because you work hard and believe in fairness, the world will reward you? How naive. Better naive than cruel. Is it? Diane's smile was sharp. Because from where I'm standing, I have everything. Money, position, Victor, and you have nothing but a failing ranch and a man too proud to save himself. I have something you'll never have. What's that? Someone who actually loves me. It was a guess, a shot in the dark, but Eliza saw it land, saw the flicker of pain in Diane's eyes before her expression hardened again. Love doesn't pay debts, Miss Hart. Money does, and you don't have any. Diane walked away, leaving Eliza standing in the street with her $43 and the sinking feeling that maybe Diane was right. Cole was waiting when she got back to the ranch. He stood in the yard, arms crossed, his face dark. Where were you? Town. Doing what? Eliza climbed down from the wagon and pulled out the tin of money. Asking for help. Cole's expression went from angry to horrified. You didn't. I did. After I told you, after you let your pride get in the way of common sense. Yes. Eliza thrust the tin at him. $43. It's not enough, but it's something. Cole didn't take it. I didn't ask you to do this. I know. I did it anyway. You had no right. I had every right. Her voice cracked. This is my home too, Cole. My fight. And if you're too stubborn to ask for help, then I'll do it for you. By making me look weak? By telling the whole town I can't handle my own problems? No one thinks you're weak. They think you're in an impossible situation created by people with more money and fewer morals. Cole turned away from her. You don't understand. Then explain it to me. My father... He stopped. Started again. My father spent his whole life accepting charity. From neighbors, from the church, from anyone who'd give it. He'd drink away what little we had, then go begging for more. And people gave it to him because they pitied him. I swore I'd never be like that. Never let people look at me that way. They're not looking at you like that. They're trying to help. It's the same thing. No, Cole, it's not. Eliza moved closer. Your father took without giving back. You've given this community everything. Fair prices, honest work, help when they needed it. People remember that. They want to return it. Cole's shoulders were rigid. I can't. Can't or won't. Does it matter? Yes. Because one means you're unable. The other means you're choosing to let us lose. The words hung heavy between them. Eliza watched Cole's back, watched the tension coiled through his frame, and felt something crack inside her chest. I can't watch you destroy yourself over pride, she said quietly. I won't. What's that supposed to mean? It means if you won't fight for this, for us, then maybe I'm fighting the wrong battle. Cole spun to face her. You threatening to leave? I'm saying I can't do this alone. I can't want this more than you do. I want it. Then prove it. Take the money. Let people help. Stop punishing yourself for what your father was. They stared at each other across the yard. The sun was setting, painting everything in shades of gold and amber, beautiful and heartbreaking all at once. Finally, Cole took the tin. $43, he said. It's a start. We need 10 times that. I know. He looked at her and something in his eyes shifted. What else can we do? I don't know, but we figure it out, together. Cole nodded slowly. Together. That night they sat at the kitchen table and made a list. Everything they owned that could be sold. The spare horse, maybe $30. Tools they didn't absolutely need. Another 20 if they were lucky. Cole's father's pocket watch, the only thing of value he'd kept, might fetch 15. It still wasn't enough. Not even close. What about my skills, Eliza said. I can sew. I could take in mending, make dresses. In 3 weeks, you'd need months to make that kind of money. Then we get more time. We ask the judge for an extension. Winters will fight it. Let him fight. What's he going to do? Win twice? Cole almost smiled at that. Almost. They worked through the night, planning and scheming and trying to squeeze hope out of impossible mathematics. By dawn, they had a plan that might maybe get them to $300. It wasn't $500, but it was better than nothing. The next 2 weeks were a blur. Eliza sewed until her fingers bled, taking every mending job she could find. Cole sold the spare horse and half his tools. Mrs. Patterson organized a fundraiser, a barn dance where people paid $1 to attend, and all proceeds went to the Mercers. The Winters tried to shut it down, of course. They pressured the town hall to deny the permit, but the mayor, bless him, approved it anyway. The night of the dance, Eliza stood in the barn watching people file in. Not everyone, not even half the town, but enough. 50 people, maybe 60, each paying their $1, some adding extra. Mrs. Patterson counted the money. $143. Added to what they'd already scraped together, they had $412. We're still short, Cole said. We have a week. We'll find it. But even Eliza was starting to lose hope. 2 days before the deadline, they were sitting at the table, staring at their accounts, when someone knocked. Cole opened the door to find the station master standing there, hat in hand. Mr. Mercer, Miss Hart, sorry to bother you so late. What is it, John? There's a telegram for you. Came in this afternoon. He handed over the envelope. Figured it might be important. Cole tore it open, read it. His face went pale. What? Eliza asked. What is it? It's from my sister, in Colorado. His voice was strange, hollow. She heard about the lawsuit. She's wiring money. How much? $200. Eliza did the math in her head. 412 plus 200. That's 612. Cole, that's enough. That's more than enough. Cole sat down slowly. She doesn't have this kind of money. She and her husband, they're barely scraping by. She loves you. She's helping. I can't take it. Yes, you can. Eliza knelt beside his chair. You can and you will, because she's family, and this is what family does. Cole looked at her, his eyes wet. I don't deserve this. Probably not, but you're getting it anyway. The money arrived the next day. Eliza went with Cole to the bank to make the payment, $612, handed over to the clerk who promised to wire it to the Winters account. Receipt will take a few days, the clerk said. That's fine, Cole said, long as it's paid. They walked out of that bank into bright sunshine. The deadline was tomorrow, but they'd beaten it. They'd won. Except they hadn't. Not really. The celebration lasted exactly 4 hours. That's how long it took for the Winters lawyer to show up at the ranch with a new lawsuit. Breach of contract, he said, handing Cole the papers. Mr. Winters claims you agreed to sell him water rights in exchange for dropping the original boundary dispute. You accepted his offer in writing, then reneged. He's suing for damages, $1,000. Eliza felt the ground tilt. That's insane. Cole never agreed to anything. We have a signed letter from Mr. Mercer, agreeing to the terms. That's impossible. But Cole's face had gone ashen. The offer Diane brought, when she came by. You turned her down. I wrote a response, said I'd consider it. That was all, just that I'd consider it. The lawyer smiled. My client interpreted that as acceptance, and given the circumstances, a reasonable person would agree. This is bullshit, Eliza said. Pure manipulation? Ma'am, I'm just delivering the papers. The hearing is in 2 weeks. Good day. He left them standing in the yard, the new lawsuit heavy in Cole's hands. They'll never stop, Cole said quietly. Even if we beat this, they'll find something else, some other way to bleed us dry. So we fight it, again. With what, Eliza? We're broke, completely broke. My sister sent everything she had. We can't ask for more. But Eliza didn't have an answer. They'd played every card, exhausted every option. They were done. That night, Cole didn't come to bed. Eliza found him in the barn, sitting in the dark. "Hey," she said softly. "Hey." She sat beside him. "What are you thinking?" "That maybe I should just sell, give them what they want, end this." "You don't mean that." "Don't I? Eliza, look at what this is costing. My sister's savings, your time, the goodwill of half the town. Is it worth it?" "Yes." "How can you say that?" "Because some things are worth fighting for, even when you're tired, even when it seems hopeless." Cole turned to look at her. "You really believe that?" "I have to. Otherwise, what was the point of any of this?" He pulled her close, his arms tight around her. They sat like that for a long time, not talking, just holding on. Finally, Eliza spoke. "What if we talk to Victor?" "What?" "Not the Winters. Victor. He's the one who lied in court. Maybe if we could get him to recant his testimony." "He won't." "He might, if we offer him something." "Like what?" Eliza took a breath. "Like me agreeing to leave you alone, to walk away." Cole's arms dropped. "No." "Cole, absolutely not. You are not bargaining yourself away for this ranch." "It might work. He wanted me once. I don't care." Cole's voice was hard. "I'd rather lose everything than watch you sacrifice yourself. We're not doing this." "Then what are we doing?" "I don't know, but not that. Never that." Eliza wanted to argue, wanted to point out that it might be their only option, but she could see the set of his jaw, the determination in his eyes. He'd rather lose the ranch than lose her. The realization hit her hard. This man who'd been alone for so long, who'd built walls to keep people out, was choosing her over everything else. "Okay," she said. "Okay. We'll find another way." "What if there isn't one?" "Then we lose, and we start over. Together." Cole kissed her then, desperate and fierce. "I love you." "I know. I love you too." They went back to this house and climbed into bed, holding each other in the darkness. Tomorrow, they'd figure out what to do next. Tomorrow, they'd keep fighting, but tonight, they just held on. Eliza woke before dawn with an idea crystallizing in her mind. It was risky, probably stupid, but it was all she had left. She dressed quietly and slipped out before Cole woke. The ride into town took an hour. The sun was just coming up when she reached Victor Hale's house, a sprawling ranch house on the edge of Salvation, ostentatious and new. She tied her horse and walked up to the door. Knocked. A housekeeper answered, an older woman with suspicious eyes. "I need to speak with Mr. Hale. He's not receiving visitors. Tell him Eliza Hart is here. Tell him it's about Cole Mercer." The housekeeper hesitated, then disappeared inside. A few minutes later, she returned. "He'll see you in the study." Victor was standing by the window when Eliza entered. He looked perfect, as always, not a hair out of place. "Eliza, this is unexpected. I'll make this quick. I know you lied in court about seeing Cole's cattle on Winter's land. That's a serious accusation. It's the truth. You and the Winters are working together to destroy Cole. I don't know why. Maybe they're paying you. Maybe you just like hurting people. But I know you lied." Victor turned to face her. "Let's say, hypothetically, that you're right. Why would I admit it?" "Because I'm asking you to. Because somewhere in you there has to be a shred of decency left." He laughed. "Decency. That's rich coming from you." "What did I ever do to you?" "You embarrassed me. Showed up looking like something the cat dragged in, made me look like a fool for bringing you here. And then you had the audacity to reject me at the dance, in front of everyone. You rejected me first. That was different." "How?" "Because I'm the one with power in this situation, not you." Eliza felt cold spread through her. This was pointless. Victor didn't have decency. He had ego and cruelty and nothing else. "So that's it then," she said. "You'll just keep lying because you can." "Yes. Even if it destroys innocent people." "Cole Mercer is hardly innocent. He's a stubborn fool who refused to know his place." "His place?" "Below men like the Winters. Below me. That's how the world works, Eliza. Some people are meant to lead, and others are meant to follow. Cole never learned that lesson." "And what about me? Where do I fit in your world?" Victor moved closer. You were supposed to be mine, a dutiful wife who knew her place, but you got ideas above your station, started thinking you deserved better. I do deserve better, better than you. Do you, though? His voice was soft, dangerous. Look at you, begging at my door, desperate. If you just married me like you were supposed to, none of this would be happening. If I'd married you, I'd be miserable. But you'd be comfortable, safe. Isn't that what you came here for? It had been. Once. When she'd stepped off that train, broken and desperate, she'd wanted exactly that, comfort and safety and someone to take care of her. But she'd learned something since then. Learned that comfort without freedom was just a prettier cage. That safety without dignity wasn't safe at all. I came here for a lie, she said, a fantasy about what my life could be. But I found something real instead, something worth fighting for. How poetic. It won't save his ranch. Maybe not, but at least I'll know I tried. Can you say the same? When you're old and alone in this big house, will you be proud of what you've done? Something flickered in Victor's eyes. Not quite guilt, but close. Get out, he said. Victor, get out of my house. And tell Cole Mercer he has 2 weeks to accept the winter's offer. After that, they'll take the ranch by force if they have to. Eliza left. She'd failed. Completely and utterly failed. The ride back to the ranch felt longer than the ride out. The sun was high and hot, and Eliza felt exhausted down to her bones. She'd tried everything, done everything, and it wasn't enough. Cole was in the yard when she arrived. He took one look at her face and knew. It didn't work. No. He helped her down from the horse. I told you it wouldn't. I had to try. I know. He held her close. I know you did. They stood there in the yard, the sun beating down, and Eliza felt the weight of defeat settle over her. They were going to lose. Despite everything, the fighting, the sacrifice, the love, they were going to lose. Cole? Yeah? If we have to leave, if we lose the ranch, where would we go? He was quiet for a long moment. I don't know, west, maybe, California, start over. Would that be enough? Starting over? It would have to be. Eliza pulled back to look at him. Would it, though? Or would you always resent me for the choice you had to make? What choice? Between the ranch and me. Because that's what it came down to, didn't it? You could have sold to the Winters months ago, could have taken their offer and walked away with something. But you didn't. Because of me. Eliza. I'm right, aren't I? You stayed and fought because I asked you to, because I needed to believe we could win. Cole's hands cupped her face. I stayed and fought because I wanted to, because you made me remember what it felt like to care about something besides just surviving. That's not your fault. That's the best thing that ever happened to me. Even if we lose? Even then. Eliza kissed him, tasting salt. Her tears or his, she couldn't tell. They stood there holding each other while the sun moved across the sky, and Eliza tried to memorize this moment, this feeling, in case it was all they had left. The wagon was loaded by noon the next day, not with everything they owned, they couldn't fit it all, but with what mattered. Clothes, tools, the photograph of Cole's mother, Eliza's sewing kit, the deed and survey documents, useless now but too important to leave behind. Everything else would stay with the ranch, sold along with the land to whoever bought it. Probably the Winters. Eliza stood in the kitchen one last time, looking at the floor she'd scrubbed until it gleamed, the windows she'd washed, the curtains she'd sewn. 6 months of work. 6 months of building something that felt like hers. Gone. You ready? Cole asked from the doorway. No. Me neither. They decided to leave before the final lawsuit hearing, before the Winters could drag them through another round of legal humiliation. Cole had written to his sister in Colorado, asking if they could stay until they found work. She'd wired back immediately. Yes. Come, bring Eliza. It should have felt like relief. Instead, it felt like surrender. Eliza took one last look around, then walked outside. Cole was already on the wagon seat, the reins loose in his hands. He looked older somehow, the lines around his eyes deeper, his shoulders carrying weight that hadn't been there before. She climbed up beside him. Let's go, she said. The wagon lurched forward. Eliza didn't look back at the house, at the barn, at the garden she'd planted. Looking back would break her. They were halfway down the road when they saw the rider coming toward them. Fast. Too fast. Cole pulled the wagon to a stop. The rider was the telegraph boy from town, the same kid who delivered the notice about the survey. He pulled his horse up hard, breathing heavy. "Mr. Mercer, Miss Hart, I've been riding all over looking for you." "What is it?" Cole's voice was flat. "Telegram. From the territorial judge's office." The boy thrust the envelope at Cole. The clerk said it was urgent. Cole tore it open. "Read it." His face went completely still. "Cole?" Eliza touched his arm. "What does it say?" "The lawsuit, the second one about the water rights, it's been dismissed." "What?" "Dismissed. With prejudice. Says here the Winters claim was fraudulent, based on a forged letter." Eliza grabbed the telegram from his hands. The words were there in black and white. Official and final. Case dismissed. No damages owed. Investigation pending into falsified evidence. "I don't understand," she said. "How—" "There's more." Cole pointed to the second page. Victor Hale came forward, admitted he lied in the first trial, said the Winters coerced him, paid him to give false testimony. The world tilted. Eliza read the words again, trying to make them make sense. Victor had confessed, had told the truth. Why? The telegram boy shifted in his saddle. "There's talk in town. People saying Victor got into it with Mr. Winters. Some kind of falling out. Victor wanted to marry Diane, but Mr. Winters said no. Called him a liar and a cheat, not good enough for his daughter. So Victor went to the judge and spilled everything. Pride and ego. That's what had brought Victor down in the end. Not decency, not guilt, just wounded pride. But the reason didn't matter. What mattered was the result. So what happens now? Eliza asked. The boy shrugged. Judge wants to see you both, soon as possible. Something about restitution. Cole handed the boy a coin. Thanks for riding out. Yes, sir. Congratulations, I guess. The boy rode off. Cole and Eliza sat in the wagon, staring at each other. We won, Eliza said. The words felt strange, unreal. Maybe. We should go see the judge before we celebrate. Cole, I mean it. This could still be a trick, some new way to... Eliza kissed him, hard and fierce and full of all the hope she'd been too afraid to feel. It's not a trick, she said. We won. Cole's arms came around her, holding tight. We won. They turned the wagon around. The territorial judge's office was in the county seat, 2 days' ride, but they made it in a day and a half, pushing hard. The judge was a stern-looking woman in her 50s with steel gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. Mr. Mercer, Miss Hart, sit. They sat. The judge pulled out a thick file. I've reviewed the evidence Mr. Hale provided. His testimony in the first trial was entirely fabricated. The Winters paid him $200 to lie under oath. Why would he admit that? Cole asked. Because I offered him a choice. Face perjury charges and possible jail time, or cooperate fully and receive a reduced sentence. He chose cooperation. The judge's expression was grim. The Winters are facing multiple charges: fraud, witness tampering, filing false claims. They'll be in court for months. What about the $500 we paid? Eliza asked. For the first judgment? Will be returned to you, with interest. Additionally, given the malicious nature of the Winters' actions, I'm awarding you damages, $2,000. Eliza's breath caught. $2,000. More money than she'd ever seen in her life. There's one condition, the judge continued. Mr. Hale's testimony implicated you as well, Miss Hart. Me? He claims you offered to leave Mr. Mercer in exchange for his silence. Is that true? Eliza's face burned. I went to him, yes. I asked him to tell the truth. I may have suggested that if he wanted me to leave Cole alone, I would consider... So you attempted to bribe a witness. I was desperate. I didn't know what else to do. The judge studied her for a long moment. I'm inclined to overlook it, given the circumstances. But in the future, Miss Hart, I suggest you find legal methods to solve your problems. Yes, ma'am. Good. Now get out of my office. I have actual criminals to deal with. They walked out into bright sunshine. Cole looked dazed. $2,000, he said, plus the $500 they're returning. We could fix the barn, buy new cattle, plant twice as much. Cole. Eliza stopped him. We could also just breathe for a minute. He looked at her, and slowly, a smile spread across his face, real and unguarded and beautiful. Yeah, he said. We could do that too. They stayed in town that night, renting the same room at the boarding house where they'd stayed before. This time, when Eliza washed the trail dust off, she felt lighter, like she'd been carrying stones and someone had finally let her set them down. Cole came up behind her, his arms circling her waist. Hey, he said against her hair. Hey yourself. I've been thinking. About? About what you said, that day in the yard, about me choosing between the ranch and you. Eliza turned in his arms. Cole, let me finish. You were right. I did choose, but not the way you thought. His hands came up to frame her face. I chose you. Every time. The ranch only mattered because you were there, because we built it together. It was always yours. No, it was mine. Then you came and made it ours, made it into something worth keeping. Cole's thumb traced her cheekbone. I'm saying this badly. What I mean is, marry me. Eliza's heart stopped. What? Marry me. Not because you need someone to take care of you, not because it's practical or safe, but because I love you and I want to build a life with you, a real one. Cole, you can say no. I know I'm not much of a catch, stubborn and closed off, and too proud for my own good. Yes. He stopped. Yes? Yes, I'll marry you, you stubborn, closed off, overly proud man. Eliza was crying now, laughing through the tears. Yes. Cole kissed her, and this time there was no desperation in it, just joy, pure and uncomplicated. They were married 3 days later by the same judge who'd dismissed the case. It was quick and official and not remotely romantic, just paperwork and signatures and a firm handshake from a woman who'd seen too many bad marriages to get sentimental about good ones. But it was real, legal, binding. Eliza Hart became Eliza Mercer, and it felt like coming home. They rode back to the ranch on a clear morning, the sky so blue it hurt to look at. As they crested the final hill, Eliza saw it all spread out below. The house, the barn, the fences, the land that was officially, legally, irrevocably theirs. Look at that, Cole said quietly. What? Someone's at the house. Eliza shaded her eyes. There were wagons in the yard, multiple wagons, and people, dozens of them. What's going on? They rode down quickly. As they got closer, Eliza recognized faces. Mrs. Patterson from the general store, the blacksmith, the banker's clerk, people from town, people who'd contributed to the fundraiser, people who'd helped when no one else would. Mrs. Patterson stepped forward. About time you two showed up. What is this? Cole asked. Barn raising. Well, barn fixing, technically. Figured you could use the help, what with all the trouble you've been through. We can't ask you to. You're not asking, we're offering. Mrs. Patterson's expression softened. You stood up to the Winters, made them answer for what they did. That takes courage. We figured we'd show our appreciation. Eliza felt her throat tighten. Thank you. Don't thank us yet. Wait until you see how bad we are at roofing. The day dissolved into controlled chaos. Men swarmed the barn, replacing rotted boards and securing the roof. Women organized food, casseroles and pies and bread, more than 2 people could eat in a week. Children ran wild in the yard, their laughter bright against the sound of hammering. Eliza worked alongside the other women, cutting vegetables and setting out plates, answering questions about the wedding and the trial and what came next. It felt strange being part of this, being welcomed instead of whispered about, being home. By evening, the barn stood straight and solid. The roof didn't leak. The doors hung square. It looked new, or close enough. The blacksmith raised a cup of water. To the Mercers, may their troubles be over and their cattle be fat. Everyone laughed and drank. Eliza stood next to Cole, his arm around her waist, and felt something shift inside her chest. Contentment, maybe. Or just the absence of fear. The crowd dispersed as the sun set, wagons rolling away one by one until only Mrs. Patterson remained. One more thing, she said, handing Eliza a wrapped package. Wedding present, from the ladies in town. Eliza unwrapped it carefully. Inside was a quilt, hand-stitched, each square made by a different woman. Their names were embroidered in the corners. A community, rendered in fabric. "It's beautiful," Eliza whispered. "It's practical. Gets cold up here." Mrs. Patterson smiled. "But I'm glad you like it." "Thank you for everything." "You earned it, dear. Both of you." Mrs. Patterson climbed into her wagon. "Now go enjoy your ranch. You fought hard enough for it." They stood in the yard watching her leave, the quilt heavy in Eliza's arms. "You okay?" Cole asked. "Yeah, just overwhelmed." "Good overwhelmed or bad overwhelmed?" "Good. Definitely good." They went inside. The house was the same as they'd left it, clean and spare and theirs. Eliza spread the quilt across the bed while Cole lit the lamps. "Strange, isn't it?" she said. "A few days ago we were leaving. Now we're staying. You regret it?" "No. Do you?" "Not even a little?" Eliza sat on the bed, running her fingers over the quilt squares. Each one represented someone who'd chosen to help, to care, to build something bigger than themselves. "I used to think happiness was about safety," she said, "about finding someone to take care of me so I wouldn't have to be scared anymore. And now? Now I think it's about this. Building something with someone, fighting for it when it's hard, choosing it every day." Cole sat beside her. "That's a lot of work." "I know. Worth it, though." "Yeah, worth it." They lay back on the bed, the quilt soft beneath them, and Eliza thought about the path that had brought her here, the train platform, Victor's rejection, the desperate choice to go with a stranger, every moment of fear and doubt and determination. She wouldn't change any of it, because it had led to this. To a ranch that was finally, truly theirs. To a community that saw them as more than gossip. To a man who'd learned to let her in, and a woman who'd learned to stand on her own. To home. The next morning, Eliza woke to find Cole already gone. She dressed and went outside, expecting to find him working. Instead, he was standing by the garden, staring at something in his hands. "What is it?" she asked. He held up a letter. "From the Winters. Well, from their lawyer. They're selling the ranch, moving back east." "Good riddance." "Yeah." Cole folded the letter. "There's more, though. They want to sell me their water rights for $1. $1? Part of the restitution agreement with the judge. They have to offer me first right of refusal, and she set the price." Eliza started laughing. She couldn't help it. After everything, the fighting, the lawsuits, the threats, the Winters were forced to sell Cole the exact thing they'd tried to steal from him, for nothing. "What are you going to do?" she asked. "Buy it, obviously." Cole grinned. "Best dollar I'll ever spend." They walked through the garden together, checking on the plants Eliza had set before they'd tried to leave. Most had survived. Some were even thriving, sending up green shoots toward the sun. "We should expand this," Eliza said. "Plant more vegetables. Maybe some flowers." "Flowers? Why not? Just because something's not practical doesn't mean it's not worth having." Cole looked at her, and his expression was soft. "No, I guess it doesn't." They spent the morning working side by side, pulling weeds and planning improvements. The barn, the fences, the house, all of it needed work. But they had time now. Time and money and each other. Around noon, another rider appeared. This time it was Diane Winters. Eliza felt her shoulders tense, but Cole just stood calmly, waiting. Diane dismounted. She looked different, smaller somehow, less sure of herself. Her dress was plain, her hair simply done. "I came to apologize," she said without preamble. "For what?" Cole asked. "For everything. The lawsuits, the lies, the cruelty." Diane's voice was tight. "My father, he's not a good man. I knew that. But I went along with it anyway because it was easier than standing up to him." "Why tell us this now?" Eliza asked. "Because we're leaving, tomorrow. And I wanted you to know that not all of it was personal. Some of it was just—" Diane stopped, started again. "I was jealous of what you had, the way you looked at each other, the way you fought for each other." "You could have had that," Eliza said quietly, "if you'd chosen differently." "I know, but I didn't. I chose safety over everything else, and now I'm stuck with that choice." Diane mounted her horse. "I hope you'll be happy, both of you. You deserve it." She rode away without waiting for a response. "You believe her?" Cole asked. I think she believes herself. Whether that's the same thing? Eliza shrugged. I don't know, but I also don't care. She's leaving. That's what matters. Cold. Practical. Cole almost smiled. When did you get so hard? When I learned that being kind doesn't mean being weak, and being forgiving doesn't mean being a doormat. Fair enough. They went back to work. The day passed in a blur of small tasks and smaller victories. By evening, Eliza's back ached and her hands were dirty, but the garden was twice as large and full of promise. They ate dinner on the porch, watching the sun set over land that was theirs, free and clear, and fought for. You know what I keep thinking about? Eliza said. What? That train platform, the rain, how sure I was that my life was over. Seems like a long time ago. It was. I was a different person then. Better now? Different, stronger, maybe, more sure of what I want. Cole set down his plate. And what do you want? This, you, a life we build together, whatever that looks like. Even when it's hard? Especially then. They sat in comfortable silence as the stars came out, one by one, filling the sky with light. Somewhere in the distance, a coyote called. Closer, the wind rustled through the grass. I never thanked you, Cole said. For what? For staying. That first day. You could have gotten back on the train, found something else, somewhere else. But you didn't. I didn't have anywhere else to go. At first, maybe. But later, you had options, and you still chose this. Eliza turned to look at him. You know why? Tell me. Because you saw me, not the desperate woman on the platform, not the charity case or the mail-order bride who wasn't good enough. Just me. And you offered me a choice instead of a cage. That's all? That's everything. Cole pulled her close. They sat like that until the moon rose, wrapped in the quilt the town had made, surrounded by land they'd fought to keep. And Eliza realized something. She'd come to Montana looking for rescue, for someone to save her from a life she couldn't stand. But she'd found something better. She'd found the strength to save herself. And in doing that, she'd found a partner. Someone to stand beside, not behind. Someone who saw her as an equal, not a burden. The ranch would have its troubles. Money would be tight sometimes. The work would be hard. There would be bad years and good years, struggles and triumphs. But they would face it together. And that made all the difference. Weeks turned into months. Summer came, hot and bright. And Eliza's garden flourished. The cattle thrived on the expanded grazing land. Cole hired a hand to help with the heavy work, a young man from town who was grateful for steady employment. The town slowly forgot about the scandal, or at least they stopped talking about it where Eliza could hear. She became just another rancher's wife, shopping at the general store, attending barn dances, contributing to the community she'd once felt so separate from. But she never forgot what it had taken to get there. Never forgot the woman who'd stepped off that train with nothing but hope and desperation. That woman lived inside her still, a reminder of where she'd come from and how far she'd traveled. One evening in late summer, Eliza stood in the doorway watching Cole work with the new hand, teaching him the right way to mend a fence. Cole was patient, explaining things twice when the boy didn't understand, never raising his voice. He'd changed too, opened up in ways she suspected he never had before. He laughed more now, talked more, let people in. They'd changed each other, for the better. Mrs. Patterson stopped by the next day with news. Victor's gone, took off in the middle of the night, left town without paying his debts. Where'd he go? No one knows. East, probably, or maybe south. Anywhere he could find someone new to fool. Mrs. Patterson shook her head. Men like that never change. Eliza thought about that later, about how some people spent their whole lives running from their mistakes instead of facing them. How they chose comfort over growth, pride over humility. How easy it would have been to become that person herself. But she hadn't. She'd chosen differently. And that choice had made all the difference. Fall arrived with cold winds and the promise of snow. Eliza and Cole worked to prepare the ranch for winter, storing food, repairing buildings, making sure the cattle had shelter. It was hard work, but satisfying. The kind of work that left you tired, but content. One afternoon, Eliza was in the house making preserves when she heard a wagon in the yard. She looked out to see a woman climbing down, young, pregnant, with a battered trunk beside her. The woman looked lost, scared. Eliza recognized that look. She'd worn it herself once. She went outside. "Can I help you?" "I'm looking for work. Any kind. I can cook, clean, sew." The woman's voice cracked. "Please, I just need a chance." Eliza looked at her, really looked, saw the desperation and the fear and the thin thread of hope she was clinging to. She saw herself. "What's your name?" "Sarah. Sarah Bennett." "I'm Eliza Mercer. This is my husband's ranch." Eliza glanced toward the barn where Cole was working. "We could use help with the house, especially come winter." "You mean you're offering me work?" "Room and board plus wages, fair wages, but you'll have to work for it." Sarah's eyes filled with tears. Thank you so much." "Don't thank me yet. Winter's hard up here. You might not last." "I'll last, I promise." Eliza helped her with the trunk. As they walked toward the house, she caught Cole's eye. He raised an eyebrow, a question. She nodded, an answer. They'd helped this woman the same way Cole had helped Eliza, not out of charity, but out of understanding, out of the knowledge that everyone deserved a chance to build something better. That night, after Sarah was settled in the spare room, Eliza and Cole sat on the porch. "You sure about this?" Cole asked. "Yes." "Are you?" "If you are." "She reminded me of myself when I first came here." "I noticed." Eliza leaned against him. "Do you think we're doing the right thing?" "I think we're doing what we can. That's all anyone can do." "Is it enough?" "It was for you." And it had been. One person offering help when she needed it most, one person seeing potential instead of failure. Maybe Sarah would stay. Maybe she'd leave as soon as she had money saved. It didn't matter. What mattered was the choice, the chance. The same chance Eliza had been given. Winter came hard that year. Snow piled high against the house, and the wind howled through gaps in the walls. But inside it was warm. Sarah proved to be a good worker, quick and capable and grateful. She and Eliza became friends slowly, the way people do when they've both known hardship. Cole taught the hired hand everything he knew, and the boy learned fast. By spring, they'd be able to run the ranch smoothly, without Cole having to do everything himself. They were building something, not just a ranch, a life. A community. One night in the depths of winter, Eliza lay awake listening to the storm outside. Cole was asleep beside her, his breathing steady. Down the hall, Sarah was probably asleep too, safe and warm. Eliza thought about the journey that had brought her here, the mistakes and the heartbreak and the small acts of courage that had added up to something bigger. She thought about the woman she'd been, desperate and afraid, willing to marry a stranger just to escape her circumstances, and the woman she'd become, strong and certain, choosing her own path. The difference wasn't the ranch or the money or even Cole, though all of those things mattered. The difference was choice. Active, intentional choice. Not just accepting what was offered, but demanding what she deserved. Not just surviving, but building, creating, claiming her own life instead of waiting for someone to give it to her. That was the real victory. Not beating the winters or keeping the ranch, but learning that she was strong enough to stand on her own, and brave enough to choose to stand beside someone else. Spring came eventually, the way it always does. The snow melted and the grass turned green and the world came back to life. Eliza's garden burst with color, flowers this time, along with the vegetables. Beautiful and impractical and exactly what she wanted. Sarah's baby came in early April, a healthy girl with strong lungs. They named her Hope, and Eliza thought it was fitting. Hope for the future. Hope for second chances. Hope that tomorrow could be better than today if you were willing to fight for it. The ranch prospered. Not overnight, not easily, but steadily, year by year, they built something worth keeping. And on quiet evenings, when the work was done and the world was still, Eliza would stand on the porch and look out at the land that was hers. Not given, not inherited, but earned. Hard-won and precious and real. Sometimes Cole would join her, his hand finding hers in the darkness. "You ever regret it?" he'd ask. "Coming here, staying." "No," she'd say, and mean it. Never. Because she'd learned something important in that hard Montana soil. She'd learned that the best things in life aren't the ones that come easy. They're the ones you fight for, the ones you build with your own hands. The ones you choose over and over again, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. That was the lesson she carried, the truth she'd earned. And years later, when Sarah asked her advice about men or life, or just how to get through another hard winter, Eliza would tell her the same thing Cole had told her that first day. You always have a choice. It might not be an easy choice. It might not be a good choice, but it's yours. And that matters more than anything.